How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books, it's found on the battlefield. All right, what's up, Miriam? I'm happy to hang out with you. This is exciting. Excited to be able to share your stuff because I have really enjoyed the conversations with you so far and the very healthy and helpful points of view that you have given. And I can't share it with the world, honestly. So
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
please, all right, do my people a favor, and then I'll do the same for you. Who are you? What do you do? And what is like where are we gonna go today? Because I want to hear like who is this? All right, who's Miriam? Who is it? I gotta know.
Yeah. Well, I am a portrait photographer as well as a women's feminine energy coach, and I help women feel amazing. I help reduce hustle, get out of hustle, get out of stress, get out of anxiety, and into getting what they want with ease, with pleasure, and really to turn on living and to discover their soul essence and discover confidence and happiness and joy and contentment and peace. And I do that through coaching via the perspective of feminine energy. And I also help empower women through photography as well. And I'm a makeup artist. I style, do hair and makeup and everything for my clients with photography. So I like to say that I know women inside and out. My photography business, I predominantly photograph women. And so my passion lies in empowering and helping women. To all extent.
Now, I got good questions for you, and I know that you got good questions for me because any of my people know I work with the men. I'm on the men's side. I have women's groups, and I will also give you a second for something that we talked about that actually really works. So I'm going to give you some credibility boost for anybody. Who is this girl? She's good. I'm going to show you why. So
Yeah.
in which case, I work on the men's side mostly. I have a lot of guys I work with, and I have a couple groups with girls, and the women have taught me some things. Now, there's a couple things I'm going to go into where we're talking about polarization. We're talking about feminine and masculine and toxic feminine and toxic masculine, like all these things. Today, we're going to have some cool, like I want your subjective professional views. I want both. I want all of it because people have this wrong all the time. And I have had polarization coaches come on. I have had people come on before and leave people scratching their head more than feeling like fulfilled. Going,
Sure.
what are they talking about? How can that be right? Like I've had a lot of that. I'm looking forward to you going, this is what it's supposed to be. No, I'm looking forward to like the results that have actually given good results.
Sure.
All right, first thing that I got for you. First one, let's get into the obvious. Let's go into one of the hard ones. Guys have burden of performance. Women have burden of beauty. You do hair. You do photography. You can see it for what it truly is. And I think that this has been corrupted in a crazy way. Please, can you give your perspective on one of the age-old things for women, the burden of beauty? Can you please give them the healthy way?
You know, it's so funny because I'll have women come in that'll apologize, especially in the photography context where they'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. I got a zit. And I'm like, why are you apologizing in the first place? And then they'll be like, oh, I'm really sorry. My hair is fine. Or it's, I don't know what you're going to do with it because it's, they're belittling themselves from the second they walk into my studio. And I'm over here and I'm like, you do realize that without your face and without your hair, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm able to do. And they're like, oh, well, it's all you. You all work your magic. And I'm like, no, I cannot create photos without a subject in front of me. I'm like, so I have this rule in my photography studio where a woman is not allowed to say any negativity about herself. And that becomes very difficult and they catch themselves. And it gets to be a little amusing because they're like, oh, and they'll start apologizing. And I'm like, no, you're not allowed to say sorry. You're not allowed to apologize for yourself. And it's all interwoven in this, I have this belief, like, we are made like this for a reason and we are who we are for it. And it's like, but why do you feel the need to compare yourself to somebody else, right? And it really ultimately it comes down to the fact that women have not been encouraged from a societal perspective. This has gone back to like the dawn of time, that women have not been encouraged to see themselves in their natural state as something that should be looked up to. And I'm over here and I'm like, but why not? I mean, sure, I wear hair and makeup and I, have all the accessories and everything, but so like I record my podcast without hair and makeup and I'm just like, oh, it is what it is. I'm not going to hide who I am for the sake of some societal standard that is pressuring me to show up in a certain way. I used to be that way where I would only show up on social media. That's why filters are heavily existent, and why so many women I know of will not show up. Like, if they don't have hair and makeup, they're gonna use a filter. And I'm like, no, that's putting a boundary between you and your audience. Don't hide. Don't give in to the pressure to not be you. What can you do to celebrate yourself? And I mean, it really does go back to baby steps, because for a woman to be able to see her natural beauty and to be able to appreciate her natural features in its natural state starts with that inner dialogue of, well, oh, I'm okay to be seen. Women are not comfortable being seen because they don't even know what that looks like. They don't even know who they are on the inside. They don't even know how to support themselves in that format. Like, even have that conversation with yourself and to say, oh, it's okay for me to be me, and it's okay for me to see who I truly am. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of willingness to be vulnerable with oneself. And that's why we have women, I mean, tons of women who come into my photography studio who are like, I mean, you're lucky because you told me to come in with no hair or makeup, and I never leave the house without hair and makeup. And I'm like, oh, well, congratulations. Like, you left the house today, no mascara. Like, I'm really glad, because those are my instructions. And it's just like, it's another kind of prison. We think that, these things are here to empower us, when in reality, they can be a prison in and of themselves. The pressure and even the tools, the hair and makeup. And it's like, don't allow yourself to go so far in the other deep end that you're feeling like you're contained within this little prison of, oh, I can only show up if my hair and makeup is done, or people are only allowed to see me. I'm only allowed to see me. And I will only ever really truly see me if I have hair and my makeup done. Like, what a disservice to you and that poor little girl inside of you that is fighting to just have a say. What would that's like that 13-year-old version of yourself that's on the inside screaming like, well, am I not good enough? Of course she's good enough. But are you willing to have that conversation and entertain that conversation now, as an adult? Because it's the same energy. Like, if you're not willing to see your natural beauty and to empower that in yourself, then you're basically telling your 13-year-old self and that 6-year-old self that you're not good enough. What about if you have a daughter or if you have a sister? Would you say that to their face? I really sure as hope not. And that's how you have to change the perspective. And you, when you look in the mirror in the morning and you don't like what you see, you got to pretend like you're looking at your, a sister or your daughter, and you're going to be like, well, you're not good enough. You know what I mean? Like, your wrong language, but unfortunately the energy is the exact same. And so to encourage, like, it's going to take baby steps. It's a muscle that you have to build. You have to choose to see your own greatness and your own goodness and your own, like, incredible aspects of your natural beauty. You have to be willing to see it. And if you're not willing to see it, it's like, well, I'm just not being willing to see myself. I'm going to conform. And I mean, even if you are willing to, have that conversation with yourself, then okay, at least you're like, you know what? I'm not comfortable seeing me as I truly am and in my natural state. Okay, well, at least and you're aware and you're choosing something, right? But just make sure that you are choosing it and that you're not just following the path of everyone else in society, just being like, well, I'm just going to do what, the girls on Instagram, they're all using filters, so I'm going to use filters too. No, I have this rule. I never use filters. I never show up on social media with filters. So yeah, that's how I feel about the perspective of, beauty being pressured and women just not feeling like they're actually free to show up as they truly are.
That is a full page of notes for me on like stuff it's lovely to have. Like, this is the idea. I did a video called The Answers Are Not the Solutions, where you're like, you got to love yourself. You got to find who you really are in there. You got to dig down deep. I'm going to share a piece with you and then just correspond it to what you just said. When I was doing the curses that come from the burden of beauty for makeup or comparison, I wish to say that this was a simple curse, like doubt by itself. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're like, well, that's easy. What's the offer? And you're going to say, well, there's no offer. Well, then it's easy to decline an offer for nothing. You're not good enough compared to what? Well, nothing. Well, then I guess I am. Easy by itself. We'll start throwing in a combination curse. Makeup, I found, is a combination curse of at least 5 different pieces. That's why it's so hard to beat. First off, the core piece is denial. Denial is the piece where, like, I don't know who I really am inside because I wear a mask. Mask is makeup. I augment or change myself. And this isn't even just getting into plastic surgery or getting into some permanent augmentation. It's something where I need to change this to be chosen. I need to change this to be loved. I need to change this. What it is by itself is not enough. So I need to put a mask or wear an outfit or be a persona or have an energy or I'm a boss bitch or whatever the thing. Put a mask on, put on the outfit, put on the costume. That's the denial part of it. Throw in the doubt. Well, you're not good enough as you are, so you need the mask. Throw in bargaining, but you could be as long as you wear the mask. Then they could choose you, and you could be enough as long as you had to have this workout equipment or wear this makeup or smell this or boost your butt or whatever the thing could be. Wear long eyelashes, like whatever it could. Use a filter. Could be. You could be beautiful if. Start throwing in fear. What if they saw me for who I really was? In fact, Miriam, you are lucky. You're lucky to see me without hair and makeup. You're lucky because I'm afraid of what they would say if they saw me without. I don't want them to see me like that. I don't want people to see me like this. I'm afraid of what the judgments would look like. And then excuses and most excuses, this is me accentuating. I'm accentuating myself. Excuses, the best lies are mostly true. The best lies, the reason you can tell if somebody is making excuses, if ever challenged, you'll get a negative response. You'll see somebody get defensive or attack or deflect. Oh, yeah, well, what about you? It's like, hold on, what did we just hit? If it was 100% true, you wouldn't get defensive. And so that's just 5 curses put into one. Throw in these comparisons and what about them? And I'm not as good as her and I couldn't do this. This is why it's really difficult to go love yourself. It's because it's not just one attack. It's as a combination, it's a team attacking ever since a girl is 11, 12, 13. She's starting to become a woman. And already it's social media, Cosmo magazine, what mom says, what sister says, what, are doing, what gets you chosen, what makes you good enough. This curse is put in way before you have a defense against it. And so when you've been working with people, this audacious claim to be able to say, just love yourself, love yourself. It seems like it's a little bit more of a process. How have you been helping women with this stack on top of them to be able to start removing the pieces to actually go, who am I underneath the mask? Who am I underneath persona or the costume that I wear that I present to the world? And how do you get them to actually find like enjoyment in the authenticity when they've been living their lives as something else ever since they were preteen?
Yeah, so it actually it's funny because you can't fall in love with what you don't know. It's just like if you start dating somebody else. I mean, you're like, "Oh, I need time, I need to be able to discover this person." And the same goes for why the majority of women are not able to love because they don't even know what to love. They don't even know what they consist of. So I feel like loving oneself is, in my opinion, one of the last steps of the journey. And it's not something you really even have to necessarily like I don't want to say per se like work on because it comes naturally with the feminine energy journey. But, it really starts with like, the outer perimeter things that are really bothering them. The pain points. The pain points is what brings them to like, I need to change and I have to force myself to choose because up until this point, whether they believe it or not, they haven't really been choosing. They've just been following, right? They've just been doing what other society or society expectations or pressures, job pressures, family pressures, whatever. They've just been subconsciously following those in terms of the direction of their life, and it's come out to being these, or they have again, subconscious beliefs are direct their life. And so the pain points finally on a conscious level are getting to a point where they're like, you know what, I really just can't do this anymore. So that leads them, I chatted with one of my one-on-one clients the other day and she was like, to be honest, she's like, even when I talked with you, I don't think I was actually ready, but her body was like, you don't have a choice. Like you don't want to keep living this life. So she's like, even when I said yes to working with you, it was like, I didn't really feel like it was really choosing. It was like, I just need this because if I don't, I don't want to know what the answer is because I don't want to keep continuing to live my life like this. And so for a woman, it's like, in all the cases of the clients that I've worked with, their bodies are screaming at them. And I don't mean just health wise. It's like their calendars are too busy. They're doing too much. They're running around trying to do, and then do some more. And then their bodies are like, we just can't keep going at this pace. Where's the peace? Where's the calm? And it's like that for a reason, because a woman is not supposed to do. She is just supposed to be. And that is so critical. And women are so resistant to that being, because being requires you to know. It requires you to see. It requires you to discover. And I get so excited about this, because I'm like, that's when a woman, once you be and once you discover, that's where you start getting the ease and the, oh my gosh, I can just live my life and get what I want. And all these amazing things come to me, right? Like, this is how I can figure out who I am and actually love it. And because up until now, there's no space, there's no room to love, there's no room to even like to allow opportunity to discover oneself and to fall in love with oneself. Their life isn't set up to be like that. And so, discovering to love oneself doesn't come more from doing. It comes more from letting go and discovering in a very playful state. And it's so like, I love seeing women when they're open to change, because it's actually less of doing and more of like, I'm just going to let go of this. A prime example is, one of my one-on-one clients, she was like, 3 weeks in coaching, she's like, I have to change my schedule. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, her body was like, I just can't keep doing this. I can't keep filling my calendar with these things. And she made a couple of quick calls and was like, okay, I changed my schedule. No, I had to free up more time for me, because her body was screaming at her, like, you just can't keep doing this pace. And so now, 9 weeks into coaching, she's like, I am actually able to, number one, hear my emotions for the first time in her entire life. And I mean, this woman is, well, almost 40. And she is able to actually do things with her children that she wasn't able to do before. She's able to start the conversation of like, what do you want? No restrictions, no pressure. What does it look like for me to want what I want? What does it look like for me to be seen in the way that feels safe? See, that's the thing about the beauty expectations, is women only feel safe showing up that way. And so the conversation to fall in love with oneself authentically comes from the desire to feel safe doing so. Because I mean, if you go and ask any woman on the street and be like, oh, would you feel safe and comfortable like showing up on live TV right now without hair and makeup? They would probably like wilt on the ground or faint immediately. They would be like, absolutely not. Now, if someone comes up to me on the street and is like, would you? I'd be like, hell yeah. Like, let's go and show, like, I don't need to cover myself, right? Like, this is great. Like, I'm going to love myself and I mean, Alicia Keys is a great example of this. She went on a whole like anti-makeup hiatus for a really long time. And I know people were so annoyed by it, because they were like, oh, and other people were like, well, only she can do it because she has great natural skin and, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't about that. It was about her being able to prove to herself that she didn't need something, that she could show up for her, and that she could just be whole without needing anything else. And so this journey of discovering and empowering oneself, you have to be willing to feel safety and security in you, period. Nothing else. Not feeling safe in makeup, not feeling safe in clothes, not feeling safe other things, like not using them as props to support you in order to feel safe. Your security and your safety comes from you, and only you, and just you, and you don't need anything else. And only when you can open yourself up to that safety and security and allow yourself to desire it, and I say desire with emphasis, because you have to be willing to desire that safety and security in you. Only then are you able to start opening up the conversation of like, oh my gosh, I can love myself. Because guess what? It feels safe to do so. And like, oh, I actually don't need these other things in order to feel safe and secure. I don't need to feel all these like cages around me and different elements in my life, because I actually don't need them. So it's like they fall off naturally when women are able to unlock this vast, amazing world of like, oh, I just don't have to be else. I can just be me, and I can just seek that out for myself in safety and security, and everything else is just gonna like, it's like a puzzle that just like gets fit together incredibly. Like they start living, they start experiencing, they have more joy, more pleasure, more like health problems go away, job opportunities come, like everything fits into place because they're no longer seeking from outside themselves. They're seeking from inside. And it comes from letting go and not chasing or not filling their life with ends. It's like, oh, I'm just going to let go. And then, of course, after a certain period of time, the action comes, but it comes later when the safety and security is already set in stone. And women are like, yeah, it's safe to be authentic. It's safe to be me because who else would I be? Right. It's almost like they become this like, oh, it's a no brainer. Why did I wait so long resisting discovering myself? Well, that's because it wasn't safe before. Right. And there's a lot of things that come into play there. Nervous system, trauma. There's going to be a lot of things that prevent a woman from being able to feel safe, seeking out herself. And it also is like tough because then it also means that you're not chasing and you're not seeking validation from outside other people. I mean, that's really scary in and of itself to be able to feel comfortable and to feel safe validating yourself. But it's also the most empowering and the most freeing thing that a woman can experience is to realize that you don't need to rely on anybody else in order to feel something. You can just feel by just being you and just seeing you and just experiencing life from that perspective.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces there, Miriam. There's a lot of pieces to jump into. All right, I got a few of these I need to go into. I can guarantee you, at least somebody listening to this said, women are not supposed to do, you're supposed to be. And this goes against just today's societal narrative. Like women need to be boss babes and need to be successful and super moms and own their own company and be a CrossFit champion and have everybody, on school on time and perfectly pressed clothes. And there's all this pressure that you have so much to do. How are they supposed to be able to say, like you said, to get what you want, but I'm not supposed to do? I'm supposed to be, but I get what I want without doing. And I think that would be where like it gets really kind of confusing. Like I know I'm supposed to be then, but how do I get what I want without doing? So
Yeah.
how would you help them?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much because I kind of need to explain, what feminine energy is. Because feminine energy is, in essence, like a woman's core, their soul. And in order for women, like women from even how we're designed to be, are supposed to receive. We are not supposed to go and chase things. And I'm going to get really specific here because even thinking about sex, thinking about intercourse, like women are supposed to receive. They're even when it comes to creating the baby, they don't do anything. They just receive the seed and the body just does its own thing. And then boom, there's a baby. Even when it comes to giving birth, like a woman, like you don't actually, in theory, if you didn't push, the baby's going to come out anyways. Like the womb is doing all the work mentally and energetically. You don't have to do anything. And so this is really like, and I mention these because that is what it's supposed, like when you take that mentality and take it across our lives, and this is going to be so, I think, weird for a woman listening and hearing this, because that's actually how it's supposed to be. A woman becomes and bees and is like transitions into her being state by letting go and by receiving. And why women resist is because she does not knowing. But actually for women, we're not supposed to know. We are literally just supposed to trust. And this is what gets women up in a tiffy, and they're like, this is a load of BS, because they're like, you expect me to get everything that I want without knowing how it's going to get to me. Yeah, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. And the best thing about it is you're going to get it even better. You're going to get even more of what you want by just trusting that it's going to come to you. You don't have to do what the world wants you to do. And so I say doing in the traditional sense of like, you're not going to get what you want by following some kind of formula that everyone else is like, oh, well, you got to do this in order to get XYZ. It's not a mathematical formula for women. For women to get what they want and to transition into ease and to just be instead of doing comes from like a very illogical pattern. And that's what feminine energy is. It's chaotic. It's random. It's like, well, guess what? My body is telling me to do this. So therefore I'm just going to go and do it. You might not know 3 days ahead, and you also might know a month ahead, but you might not know what the pattern is going to look like, what the steps are going to look like. But that's the core piece of feminine energy, is trusting, letting go, receiving, and then you get what you want. And so it's not that you're not going to do, it's that the doing looks so vastly different. The doing comes from you getting in touch with you, from you opening yourself up to you and to your intuition and to what the universe wants for you, and being like, oh, so I'm just going to listen to myself, and your inner you is going to tell you what to do. Your body is going to tell you what to do. So it's not some pattern or formula or something that comes from the outside world. It's like, this is what gives you exactly what you want. So that's what I mean when I say, like, you transition into being. The being comes from letting go. The being comes from a willingness to discover and a willingness to play, and just being open to receiving and to receive what it is that you want. And so this is where it catches women, even women that I coach with, because they're like, oh, I freed up my schedule. Now what? I'm like, this is exactly why feminine energy work is so important, because I don't want you to do anything. Like, you need to fill your calendar with things that are fun, things that light you up, sex for care. Like, in fact, I encourage that. I'm like, fill your calendar with video games, or, and I'm not saying fill it, like, of course you have work and you have a corporate job, but if you're taking things and removing them from your calendar, what is going to encourage a conversation with you? How can you discover you? And I mean, like, think about when we were children. Like, when we were children, that's pretty much what our goal was. We went and played till, oh, what do I like to do now? Like, how do I want to make this mud pie? How do I want to climb this tree? And literally, our lives are designed from the time that we're little to be like, okay, what about me am I supposed to learn? Right. And we do that through play, through communicating with other people. And so, I encourage women to, they're like, oh, so I just have to, like, not stress myself out about my kids' schedule, or like going and doing social activities and filling my calendar with things, because they're seeking value and worth and things to do. But now it becomes a conversation of filling their calendar with things that encourage and foster a relationship and discovery with you. What does that look like? And it's not going to be the same for everybody. Everyone is different, and every single woman is going to feel, and she's also going to get triggered when this happens, because her body does not feel safe not seeking value and other things, because she's going to feel shame. She's going to feel depressed. She might feel anxious, because she's like, well, I've been bred from the time I was little to go and do things for other people in order to get a sense of self-worth. And guess what? I'm like, your body's been telling you, and your life's been telling you, and your soul's been telling you can't do that anymore. So it becomes a matter of, day to day, hour to hour action of feeling safe in this path of transitioning into being, and doing less, and doing and just allowing oneself the room and the safety and security to discover oneself. So hopefully that was, a very long-winded explanation of transitioning into being, but hopefully that made sense for people.
I'm getting full pages with each answer, so we're good. Like, so, like, there's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of pieces here. I can pretty much guarantee it, as far as just working with women, these answers, even if correct, have to be triggering often. Like, to say, like, okay, so you're saying I'm not supposed to know, I'm supposed to trust. You're saying that it's not math, it's surrender so I can receive. You're saying, as a feminine in my soul, that I am chaos incarnate. And so I'm just going to, my energy is chaos. I bring chaos. You're going to tell me I'm the chaos? What about? I can guarantee, I've seen my comment section. Whenever the women start up, and it's mostly the women, even Andrea's like, man, the ladies are really not representing well in our comment section, because whenever it goes, hey, there's a guy struggling here, the women are the first. Well, what about me? Well, what about that? Well, what about him? He's not supposed to. And it's like, no, that person's hurting. It's not about you. It's not about change. It's not about create chaos. It's not about make another problem. That person is just hurting, and that's it. That's all that's happening. But this is where it's hard to say, well, you're not supposed to know. You're supposed to just trust. Women are chaos. Just be safe. Well, how am I supposed to be safe when every single time I've had a guy, they're bad guys? Bad. How am I supposed to trust when every time I trust, I get cheated on? Every time I trust, these bad boys that I expect to be good guys just aren't doing it. How am I supposed to do it? You see me doing the head thing? See me doing it? You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. You've heard
Yeah.
it. You've heard
Yeah.
them. How am I supposed to do what you say when the world is telling me opposite of you? How am I supposed to do
So
that?
I think it really depends because when I say the word trust, I mean like you're trusting in yourself. It's like a very quiet, not like chasing. And so the energy at which you're trusting is so key here because what I'm feeling from those women who are like, yeah, I'm just going to go trust a guy, it's almost like they know it's not going to work out. They know if they were to actually quiet themselves and spend some real quality amount of silence and self discussion with themselves, and if they were willing to be transparent in that conversation with themselves, would know that it wouldn't work, that they were putting themselves in a situation that really wasn't ultimately designed, like meant for them. And so, for women, because they're not able to validate themselves, they seek the validation elsewhere. And the dating world is just another variation of that. I mean, they're just, putting themselves in these situations because they want the compliments, they want the whatever it is, the sex and the, validation. And I mean, all forms, guy paying dinner for you, whatever. I mean, it's all form of validation, right? And so it becomes this very one-sided approach, which is why the relationship doesn't ever work out because the woman is seeking things that ultimately she should be able to give herself because in a true and healthy relationship, she's not going to be putting out this energy of like, well, I need this from you and I need this from you and I need this from you and I need this for you. Right. She's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to be open and willing to receive things that I know that I need, but they're going to come to me instead of me chasing them. And so for the women that are, having, relationships that don't work over and over and over again, it becomes a matter of like, okay, well, let's do, a mini intervention with yourself and silence, not dating anyone, and really going into this road of like self discovery because, I've cut off relationships with other people because of like what they were doing in their dating life. And I'm over here and I'm like, I literally cannot like, and they were, not willing to listen, and that's fine. It's their life. But I'm like, I see exactly where this is going. And unfortunately, I cannot stand by and just watch it happen. So I'm like, you know what? If you ever want to come back and talk to me, that's fine. But I will not support this because I'm so in tune with my intuition and I fine tuned my ability to feel into other people and their energies, that to see someone go and spend their time chasing a very unhealthy relationship, I'm like, I break because I feel what they're going to feel in 5, 6, whatever. And I'm like, it's just not going to work out. And so it's, for a woman to be able to see herself in that way and to be able to be willing to listen and for her to believe that she has all the answers. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, like women, when they're doing this work and when a man comes into their life, or even like it can happen in the context of marriage where, the woman's been emasculating her husband for the last like 10, 15, I mean, myself included, I emasculated my husband until I went into this work. And it's like to be able to change that relationship and to be open and willing to do the work internally so that, and work on it together has to be like, it's really empowering, but it's also really effing scary because you don't necessarily, all you have to rely on is like your feelings, which again is another key thing with feminine energy. But for these women that are seeking that healthy relationship, it starts with yourself first, and the ability to trust that the right guy come to you, that you are going to attract, not chase, attract the right person who is meant for you, but that attraction and that like the right guy is going to literally be a magnet once you do the internal work and you are very self like, okay, I can love myself, I can validate myself, I don't need sex or these other things in order to find my self value. Then you become a magnet, and it's like, whoa, like opening yourself up, not putting these parameters around, or maybe the parameters need to be redefined on the type of guy that you want. And not in the sense of like, feminine energy is all about being open and just trusting that the universe is going to provide what is best for you. And women have this very unhealthy relationship with trust. And so it becomes this like, well, I shouldn't trust myself because I have this proof, right? Well, that's because you're seeking proof. You're seeking proof that it doesn't work. So how about instead we seek proof of what does work And so, it's like this, there's different levels of trust and there's different forms of trust. And so when I say like a woman is trusting, she's like, there's no restriction, there's no parameter. She is fully like jumping off of a cliff and trusting that she has herself. She's got her. That's all she needs. And that the universe is going to catch her. And it's another level of, it's a very deep and soul riveting trust that's the form of what I'm talking about when I talk about like trusting in the aspect of, this context. Because, for a woman to trust in a relationship and say it doesn't even work out, she's not going to be afraid because she's like, well, I got me. It'll be fine. There's no like, oh, what's going to happen? It happened again. Like there's none of that because she's like, oh, well, it didn't work out. What did I learn from this? What did I need to take this going forward? And you know what? I've got my own back. Like I've got my own emotions. I've got my own love. I don't need this. This is something that was an experience. And yes, it was heartbreaking because I gave myself 200% to somebody else and they didn't appreciate it or respect it or reciprocate it. And that hurts like hell. But I know I've got me, and that's what's going to make me feel safe.
These are such multifaceted answers. Like there are so many steps inside of these. It's a lot to go in. I'm excited. I have like 20 questions for you still. Okay, so there's a lot of things in here, especially when it comes to, like you said, how to trust myself. You got into manifesting, or even like we can get into some really fun conversations of if you're supposed to be attracting a guy, not only what type of guy are we for, or what does that even mean, or what value would you bring to this guy's life, or even how do women hunt? Like you said, you're not supposed to be doing, you're not supposed to be out there trying to get, you're not supposed to be trying to get, you're supposed to be trying to receive. There's a lot of layers here. It's like you said. I want to get to that, but I would probably say I think I'm watching more and more people are seeking the validation and they're trying to be loved and they're trying to be wanted and needed and all of these things to be fulfilled or feel fulfilled or be connected or or have that safety, security, and multiple facets. It's really tough. Do you think that they should be starting with self-work before they get into a relationship, or have you seen people try and do it backwards? Like if you were to say like, all right, we know life isn't perfect, but where do they start before we start getting into what do you do if you're already in? Do you start with self-work? Do I start with I have to go in and like myself, date myself, have a crush on myself, love myself? Or do you go, I do this during the process and I transform while in the relationship? And like, where would you
So
start?
my answer is probably not going to be what you expect because what I tell women is tune into yourself and listen to what your body and where your body is telling you to start. So I'm not going to say you got to start here, you got to start here, you got to start here, because guess what? Ultimately, only you know where you feel pulled to start. And it might not be where you want to start. And that's perfectly okay. But you do to be able to like, and this is where the work starts now. It starts with you being able to silence the expectations, the pressure, the busyness, the doing, and just being able to be like, what is my body and my being and my soul trying to tell me? And this is where, and this, even this, like listening to yourself, it's going to be different for everybody. And I always say, like, depending on what their human design is, because some women don't have an intuition and it's not activated. And so they do have to discover doing. And so it just really depends. But for the majority of women do have an intuitive sense, it's like, okay, what is it like to listen to that and to actually do and act on what it's telling you? So, I've had clients who have come to me married, end up divorced. And that's happened actually a couple times because they've, in the process of working together, they're realizing that, you know what, this is not a healthy relationship and I need to move beyond this. And we've done and I'm not like, oh yeah, go get a divorce. Like it's a very like we got to make sure that this is the right step. And this is actually what your intuition is telling you to do and what your soul is telling you to do. And for other women I have women that come to me that are married and we start working on both the openness and the receiving at the same time as working on the marriage. And so they can coexist at the same time. And I have other women who come to me that are single and I'm like, okay, let's talk about if the dating conversation comes up, great. But if it's not, then okay, let's start working on yourself. When a woman, I intuitively can feel in what she needs to work on as soon as she gets in my world and in my space. So I can guide her based off of what I can feel, her soul and her being, and our body is wanting. So that's honestly what leads where to start. But for a woman who's not, connected with me or working in my space, it starts with that willingness to just quiet. Imagine going into like, when you dip your head underwater and everything just gets like, you can't hear anything. Think of it like that. That's what you're chasing. I want to chase this, like, okay, I'm going to go into this, like, tuning everything out. I'm just going to listen to what my body and my soul is saying. And I'm just going to hear me. What does that look like to hear me? What does it look like to just remove all the pressure from everybody else and just hear what it has to say and take a risk on me and start, taking some steps, whether it's letting go and changing your calendar, or maybe it's just like, I think I want to move forward in this area of personal development, or maybe I want to discover more about feminine energy, or maybe I want to discover, more about letting go, and maybe I just want to ask for help. Oh, maybe I want to play, do some really risky things and just, throw all shits to the wind. Like, let's just see what happens, So that's my answer, is like, it's not going to be the same for everybody, but it does start. Ultimately, you're going to know where to move on to next in terms of a fix by listening to you.
Yeah, I actually agree with your answers, especially with like when you start where you're at.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, I wish I could tell you it's like it's there's a special formula, but you start where you're at because that's where you're at.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm with you. There's a lot of stuff, especially with repression and things like this. Gosh, I got too many questions for you, Miriam. All right, so if we're starting where we're at and we're working in ourselves, I'm going to bring it some of the curses because like I want to go back a little bit and then keep putting these pieces together for people. One of the funnier things that I've done is lessons on this part where like when I'm supposed to be and love me for who I am. Like this has got its own level of curses in there because it doesn't allow growth if just love me for who I am by today's setup. But the way that things are set up right now, love me for who I am, especially for the guys, just so you know, this is not on the table. Could you imagine a guy going on a date and on the first date going, all right, so I picked out some places for us that we can move in, and I'm really looking forward to living together with you, and going, whoa, 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 dude, what are you doing? We're like, oh, you don't have to know who I am or what I do or anything. Just love me for who I am. We don't have to, we'll skip the date. Just love me for who I am. Like, men do not get this luxury. We don't get to walk into a date for just, no matter who I am, love me. We don't get this B part. We don't have that. So we have the do, not. And so to go into these situations, we're also seeing the pressure put on women that you're not supposed to be, you're supposed to do. But this goes against how you were raised. And I do a lot of stuff on Disney princesses. This curse of the princess, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Belle and Beauty and the Beast. Heck, I'll even go Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey. There are so many things that are put on for women allowed just to be and don't actually do anything, and you shall be chosen by Prince Charming. You shall be chosen by the cursed prince. You will be chosen by the powerful apex just for being. In fact, you can be average on your best day and he will still choose you no matter what. Just be. And this is a really tricky thing because, like, if you start looking at the curses of women are supposed to just be chosen by a prince, and you have on top of that Society for the 666, which is not the sign of the beast, but 6 foot, 6 figures, 6 pack. There's all these different things, which is like, well, that guy, I want him. That's what I'm seeking for, which is none of those are a value. Those aren't a value thing. Those are all superficial things. And yet that's what is being pushed is that's what you want. A guy who's over 6 foot with money and he's sexy, and like none of those are a value. This is really tricky because I can go into the Disney classes and go, all right, let's team up on this one. Let's Cinderella. Let's look at the curse. She stays at home and she's does the housework and cleans up and maybe a little crazy because she talks to mice. That's arguable. It's a little weird there, but okay. If you caught me talking to a mouse, you'd be like, I don't think that's okay. So let's just go past this. She's in an abusive household. She is treated poorly by the women in her life who put her down and shame her and make her do all the dirty work, which is an odd dynamic codependency in how she's living her life. And then she gets a fairy godmother. And what's the fairy godmother do? Changes everything about her, completely changes who she is, the persona, the blue dress, and the hair is done, and the sparkles, and everything that is now different. You change what you look like, change everything about you. And then you go to the ball. And when she's at the ball and she's there, oh, she is noticed, she is seen. And the prince is like, who is this beautiful creature, banging in blue? Who is this amazing woman? I have to meet her. And so he goes and he's dancing with her, and he's like, dang, you are beautiful. And then, boom, clock is about to ring 12, and it's about to be a reality check. So she takes off. She's out of there. And he's like, wait, wait, wait. But all he has is the glass slipper. I don't think we're even asking questions here. Why did Prince Charming have to go and put the glass slipper on all of these women's feet? Why did he have to go do that? He didn't even know her name. He didn't even know her. He doesn't. Anybody know Cinderella? He didn't know her name. He didn't choose her based on a value, based on an interest that she has, based on something that she loves to do or something she's interested in. He didn't even know her dang name. He didn't even think about her. He just went through the kingdom and said, put the shoe on. That's not her. Put the shoe on. That's not her. I don't even know who to ask for. Put the shoe on. That's not her. I don't even know what she looks like. I don't remember. Just put the shoe on. I'm going to marry this chick. Based on what criteria? And it's like, man, I got nothing here. He didn't even know her, didn't know anything about her. And then the prince will choose her and they will live happily ever after. This is a tricky one. That's a tricky one. And don't get me started with Ariel. She has to augment her body so that the prince will choose her. And then what happens with Ariel? Well, in order for the prince to choose her, she's a damsel on the beach, and she cannot do what thing? What did she have to trade for her body augmentation? Her voice. So here she is. She changes her body to be chosen by the prince, and she cannot talk. And the prince is going to choose her. Change your body for your man, and then don't talk. And then you'll get a prince. These are weird messages. These are interesting. Like, if you start going into each one of these, it's no wonder. What did they do? What did Sleeping Beauty say to the prince to make him choose her? Oh yeah, she was passed out. And he still went and fought Maleficent when she turned into a giant dragon. Like, this dude didn't even talk to her. He's just like, man, she's hot when she's passed out though, man, I'll tell you. She sleeps good. Tell you what. There was nothing there. Yet, let's go ahead and put into perspective here. This prince will fight a dragon or a powerful wizard, will go through all of these hoops, and then what breaks the curse? It's not her taking a nap. It's when the prince kisses her. Snow White wakes up, Sleeping Beauty wakes. The prince breaks the curse. The prince is amazing and then provides an amazing life for her. She was sleeping. This is tough for girls today. How do they attract a prince? How are you supposed to do this? Because it's going to be tough if you say take a nap and you'll find yourself a apex dude who's going to choose you.
Yeah.
So like these are really difficult messages that are coming off for like women. How are you supposed to navigate? Get surgery to off and shut up. How are you supposed to navigate if you're sleeping? That's enough. How are you supposed to navigate even in freaking Twilight? This vampire who's over 100 years old, which don't get me started with the age difference thing, is absolutely infatuated with this girl who is on all aspects in the story probably the most boring character in the entire thing. In fact, her superpower is she blocks powers. She's a buzzkill as her main ability. I can't read the chick. She doesn't make any sense to me. I don't. Nothing works with her. She's kind of kills all the mood here. Can't do anything. Like that's her whole thing. Is like she kind of nullifies anything great. And yet everybody's the werewolves and the vampire. Oh my god, I love this girl. I love her. I can't get enough of her. But she's the lamest character out of all of the story. All of the side characters are more interesting. And so it's like, how do you get chosen? It's fairy tales in these things. What do you see? Because it seems like an uphill battle for the girls on this one.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing here is that women just want to be chosen, right? They want to be seen. and they want to be loved for themselves, right? Ultimately, that's what women are chasing, right? When they seek a relationship, and whether they realize it or not, making that very clear. And so ultimately, woman to get a man that she is, I don't want to say wanting, because I feel like deserving is more of the key word here. She has to see and feel deserving of herself first, even if she is currently already in a relationship, because a man and a woman can work on these things together. It's absolutely possible to have the duality of I don't want to say the roles, but like the energy in the relationship changing. 100% it can be done. But a woman does have to be able to, like, oh yeah, I'm hot and sexy, like myself, and to not have that come from a man, right? Like Cinderella should have been able to say, like, oh, I can be stunning wearing rags. You know what? I am freaking stunning wearing rags. And to infuse that feeling that comes with, I don't know, wearing like a super sexy dress that you would wear out clubbing, like to infuse that feeling, but like just in all your clothes, even if you are wearing sweats, like, you're not going to second guess how hot and amazing you are. And then it goes to like this whole, okay, well, what do I deserve? And I'm not saying like physical things, because I feel like this whole physical attribute thing, like, just throw it out the window, literally. Like, for women, like, just throw it out the window. Because you shouldn't even be focusing on that in the first place. And that's probably going to be one of the hardest things to do in a very aesthetic society. But even when it comes to like the whole augmentation and like changing yourself thing, like, you got to look at the feeling you're chasing. What is it that like a BBL is going to give that I don't have currently? Okay, well then the question becomes why? Why don't I feel like that currently? What do you think it's going to feel like once you have it? That you're just going to have this sense of like, oh, well, yeah, now I have an ass, so therefore I'm sexy, or now I have a thinner waist, so therefore I'm sexy. Well, how come you can't feel sexy not having those things? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I have felt sexier at my heaviest weight than I have when I was like 80 pounds lighter. How is that even possible? Oh, I'm going to why it's possible, because I chose it. Because I chose to seek out the feelings that come with the attributes that we associate of happiness and getting everything that you want, that come with a certain body expectation that society's bred into, the Kardashians have bred into, like, oh, well, this is what you need in order to have everything that you want. Well, you can have everything that you want. You can feel sexy no matter your size, no matter your chest size, no matter your ass size, no matter your waist size. It's just that you have to be willing to experience it. You have to be willing to believe that you can deserve feeling that way, not at that size. And when you can do that and remove all these other like superficial things about a guy that has like a six pack or is 6 foot or whatever, and just be like, oh, I can feel secure. I can feel warmth. I can feel loved. I can feel welcomed, and I can feel deserving. And I want to receive, I want to say this very clearly, I want to receive that out, of course, in addition to myself, because ideally you would be receiving that from yourself too. But say you want to receive that from that masculine energy, and you want to receive it from a masculine form or just a partner, then it becomes a matter of like, okay, great. Well, I'm going to attract that. No expectations. And I say that very clearly because, the body aspect of things is just such a small portion of what you get from someone, right? Like, sure, our bodies are key, but they are literally vessels to hold our soul, our essence, our personality, our, desires and our wants. And so if you're recognizing that in yourself, then you have to be able to willing to recognize that in somebody else, and you have to be open. I mean, what I love about the feminine energy journey is I'll have clients that'll be like, oh my gosh, I got this. And it totally came to me out of the freaking nowhere. And it's literally like exactly what I needed. And I'm like, yeah, that's open. You got exactly what you wanted. It was even better than you could possibly have ever imagined. And it just came to you like literally out of thin air because you were open. So, and you didn't have any expectations. You didn't have any parameters. You weren't like, okay, great. I needed to fit in this little box, and this little, like, whatever box is going to be exactly what I need to come to me. No, we're only finite beings, and we only have finite ideas and solutions. And so the universe is going to have a better solution for us, more than we could possibly ever imagine. And so, when it comes to this whole like getting a partner that you're like, yeah, this is going to be the best person for me, you got to do the work with you, and you have to be willing to open your eyes and to just remove the parameters and to seek out the feelings, seek out the solutions for the feelings within, and not just like seek them because it's like, oh, well, I just need to go get a BBL because I know that a bigger ass is really just, you want a big ass, go to the gym. Like, you know what I mean? Like it can be done. It's a longer solution, but it's going to give you a lot more reward in many more areas. But say you want like you want bigger boobs, whatever. Then it's like, okay, well, why? How come I can't feel that way just being me? So I think what women are struggling with is their desires, even if it's not a good desire, and say they want, the augmentation, or that, like things about their lives they're not satisfied with, is in order to really get the happiness that they seek and deserve requires more effort than they're willing to put in, because the effort means that they're going to have to start a conversation with themselves. And they're probably going to learn things that they're like, oh, I'm scared to learn that. You know what I mean? Like they don't know what they don't know. And so it's easier to go and get plastic surgery than it would be to have that conversation with oneself, even though they're probably going to end up anyways, even if they do the plastic surgery. Now you've spent, 5 figures on, and you're out of money, and you're still having to have the same conversation with yourself because you were just trying to avoid it, right? You were trying to avoid what it's like to just feel all the things: hot, sexy, desired, amazing, loved, without those.
There's a lot going on with these people, that's for sure. Especially, I was like, what's a BBL? Oh yeah, that's like the big Brazilian butt lift or something,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Listen, as the dudes, I'm with you. It's just squat day.
Yeah.
Like, listen, you can get you a big butt. You just gotta do squats, but you can't get big boobs. But that's part of the curse we were talking about before. That's doubt plus bargaining. You're not good enough as you are. But look at her. She's doing great. You could be if you got boobs. That's doubt plus bargaining curse that comes in here.
Well,
Feel
and
like
I also want to make it clear too that, like, say a woman does all this work and she still wants a breast augmentation, that's fine, because she's
sure.
not doing it to fill something. She's just doing it simply because she desires it. Same thing with BBL. So I want to make that clear, because I'm not anti-surgery at all. And I mean, I've had surgery myself, but it's like, it's where you come from. That is you have to feel whole before you go seeking to like fill things with. It's not your surgery because you need it. You're just doing surgery because you're like, you know what, I already feel whole and I just happen to want this. That's fine. But you have to make sure that you're not chasing it for the wrong reasons.
It's almost like filling the hole to feel whole by changing who I am because I don't like me.
Yeah.
That's it's a tough curse.
Oh yeah.
It's a tough one. There's so many pieces to jump back in. I know I'm going to go back a little bit further, but also when it comes to like the beauty aspect of things, I need to be different to be good enough. This is a tough one too, because I've seen even in a professional environment, if women are like, I know I'm not supposed to be the do, but I still have to do because I'm not with the person that I can be, and so it's just on me right now, or I'm alone, I'm single, or single mom, or whatever the dynamic may be, I have to do. But then you have to have the burden of performance plus the burden of it once, which is super difficult. Now, even my Andrea, she works in the beauty industry. She works at a company that would be makeup or cologne or perfume or you name it, like all the beauty stuff, right? If they were to show up to work without makeup, they have had like people were like, we're going to send you home because you without makeup does not personify beauty. This is about beauty, and you with your regular face is not beauty. You need to put your makeup, you're going to sell beauty. This, just even one of these moments is enough to just to give a complex or to give a curse. It's a belief system that gets put in really quickly, maybe even from somebody who just isn't even paying attention to you at all, going, you got to wear makeup. It's a makeup store. What are you doing? Like one of those things where it can be so fast, where subconsciously, without makeup, I am not beautiful. I am not beauty if I do not have all of these things. This means I have to do something to make me beauty because what I am is not that. It is very quick where these things come in. And I want to get into the curse of the like you did mention something where it's the curse of the women. You said the Cinderella story where I should be sexy in rags. I should be happy and proud of myself. Well, who are the people who were putting her down? Well, it was the wicked stepmother and the sisters. It was the stepmother. And when I've worked with women, most of the curses for the burden of beauty that you need to be a size zero, or you need to look this way, or you need to have that look, most of the time, not saying all, most of the time, the curse came from a woman. There was a judgment that came from a mother or an aunt or a grandmother or a woman in their life who says you need to be like this, or Cosmo or another woman who said this is how you get attention. There's it was mostly because the guys, when I'm working with them, like, hey, she's thicker. They're like, hell yeah, she's thicker. Like they're not guys aren't. Well, let me just say, healthy men are not the ones who are like, oh, she got some meat on her. That's ugly. It's women on women where most of the curses, when we get in there, came from a woman cursing a woman that she's not enough if she doesn't look like. What do you do with this? Because she should be sexy in rags. But what do you see? How do you help a girl who's been like, it's women who put you in that spot? What do you do to break it?
I mean, that's a very complex answer because, the women that are causing the grief amongst other women are, it all stems from, trauma and what we call wounded femininity, right? Like they were taught or raised by a woman who was solely like, could not trust and saw other women as a threat. There's a strong, severe disconnect between themselves, and it has a domino effect. I mean, we call it, generational trauma, generational, um, wounded femininity at its core. Women have had to be something else in order to survive, and they end up just transferring it on, to their daughters and the women in their lives, and they're not able to sustain a relationship. It's literally like, 101 wounded femininity is that they're not to feel safe around other women. Other women are a threat, right? And so it's a two-part thing because, for the woman that is seeking to feel safe around other women, whether she has, that had a series of events in her life that's caused her to see other women as just being negative and like, and these are all things we're not aware of, by the way, on a conscious level. They're not even aware that this is what's happening. It's really hard because you have to dig into conscious, belief systems of why. What is it about women? What is it about you that you are ultimately afraid of seeing and afraid of accepting for yourself? In most cases that I've seen and also have experienced, we attack other women because they have what we want. And so it's like, okay, well, what is it about me believing that I can't have that? Right? Because that's where that trigger really ultimately comes from, is a belief that so and so because they have what you want and you don't actually believe that that can be something that you have. In actuality, that it's really funny because the trigger goes both ways. You're actually supposed to have it. And that's why you get super triggered, because you're like, oh, that person's really thin. You are supposed to have that for you. It's a sign that you are supposed to have that. So I love triggers. Triggers are like the best because they're so informative. But for a woman who's experiencing the attack, it's like, again, this is where, doing the personal development is so key, because you have to be willing to be empathetic to the person. You have to realize that it's not you, ultimately. I mean, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. So I say, you have to, when you do this internal work and you realize that you can validate yourself and you can love yourself, you don't even feel attacks from other people as attacks. Like I've been attacked plenty from, other people, other women most specifically. And I don't even feel like, I just get sad, not for myself, but for them, because I see where they're coming from. I see why the attack is happening and why they're feeling the need to project that on other people. Right. But if you're not in that space and you get attacked, whether it's by, someone in your life who's like, oh, well, you should dress a certain way, or you should, show more skin, or you should, change your hair color, whatever. It's like, oh, well, do I need to change myself? Is that going to help me actually feel better? Or are we just chasing, on a hamster wheel? Like you're just going around in a circle, right? Because it doesn't really matter how many changes you have and how many times you change your hair color and how many times you, change your clothing or change your style or whatever. Is that really fulfilling what you want? And for the woman that's attacking, it's like, usually the women that are attacking are not in a state where they're aware of what they're doing. They're just seeking a feeling, they're seeking self-fulfillment, and that's just a form of how they're getting it. And so, for that's really hard because, I mean, generally speaking, either something happens in their life that like wakes them up where they're like, oh shoot, I've been actually doing that, whether it's a good friend and you're like, you really shouldn't do that to someone else, or you really shouldn't be making those comments about other people. Or they're going to have, a self-awakening in other way, shape, or form that's going to allow them the ability to change their behavior and to seek healing and to seek personal healing to be able to not react that way. And until then, it's unfortunately like, I give them as much empathy as I possibly can. Most of the time, they still react even further. It's like the more empathy you give them, the more they attack you because they're like, oh, well, you're not giving me what I want. Because what they want is a reaction. They want you to feel crappy about yourself in order for them to feel self-fulfilled. And so when I don't give that to them, they get more attacking because they're like, she's not feeling like crap. And that makes me feel good. So, it's just, I think for the women that are aware of the attacks and are able to handle it, it's like gaining that self-awareness and that personal development to be able to, fulfill yourself and to be able to hold yourself is really going to be really key because it'll allow, and I mean, you'll just get attacked less because people, the people that attack can feel out, right? It's like they have this empathy, but it's like reversed. And so they're able to like know that you're an easy target and that you're able to like feel like crap. And so by you being self-fulfilled, well, they'll just like stop coming to you because they're going to be like, oh, well, unless it's a family member, and then that's it's a whole other ball game. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a very tricky perspective to look at because it's a two-part thing. And ultimately, the beauty industry, I mean, the beauty industry, it's tough because the beauty industry exists solely from a need for women to be something else in order to feel seen and heard. And so I'm really going to get into that because that's a whole other beast in and of itself. And it's not really, we as women, like, yeah, I buy into the beauty industry. I buy makeup products and I love them. Like I love, the products that I buy. But that doesn't mean I'm placing my value in the product or in the industry that I'm buying. I'm doing this because I genuinely gain happiness from it and I'm not using it as like a crutch. It's not a crutch for me. It's just it's like candy. It's like, oh, I get to have this. Yay. It's all, but I don't need it. So I think that's, really key and I have women, like I teach makeup classes and I teach it because a woman does deserve to feel empowered by makeup. She does deserve to have the knowledge and the ability to be like, that's exactly what it is. It's a tool. It doesn't mean that we're focusing on devaluing the natural beauty. It's just a tool. It's like a little tool in your toolbox. You get to like pick. It's like a piece of jewelry. Like, oh, do I want to wear this today? Yeah, I think it's going to make me feel a little bit better than I already have. But then you just have to make sure you're not relying on it, that you're not seeking, okay, well, I need to use this in order to feel something. The question is, why can't you feel without it? Right? So that work kind of needs to be done. And so it's, these are all very like day-to-day things that people are going to experience. And I think that's why most people are not going to be like, yeah, let me work on accepting myself as my natural self, because it just feels like so much work to be able to do that than to just go slap on some makeup in like 10 minutes, and it's not a 10-minute answer. It's like however long it's going to take you to heal yourself. Is it worth the work? Absolutely. It's like discovering a gold mine when you're just seeking like earrings and you discover that you have access to a gold mine. Who isn't going to take that path? But, it's all a matter of perspective and being willing to actually look for the gold mine that's already there and not just settle for, the little jewels that they already have in their.
Right on. Yeah, thank you. That's a two-part question, so thank you for that. I got one for you. You talked about this wounded feminine, and there's a few parts that you went into, and you did mention a couple different approaches that were both judgments. You should do this, or you should do this and wear this, or you should act like this, or you should have this outfit, or you should do your hair like. And it's interesting. It came up to the idea of like you did mention that like bullies will choose it's almost like a perception of like you're weak enough that I can test you out here, and if you give me the reaction that I want, that's how I choose you. And if you're like, I don't feed that monster, so that's why they don't try and come for me, because I don't feed that. Well, there's a lot of people who are in these relationships where like you said, they're not able to feel safe within themselves, and so they project onto others. Now, this is tough both in like friendships or girl that because I've seen over and over again women go, I don't have a lot of girls who are friends. I'm more friends with guys because women can be catty or women can be two-faced or women will, backstab you. And if they're wounded feminine, they'll bully and they'll use judgments and shame and outcast and reputation demolition to try to destroy another woman so they will look better for whatever reason. What are your opinion? And this is a two-part again. Women bullying women and how they do it, and then how women kind of emasculate. And then I think you said toxic, or did you say toxic feminine or wounded feminine when you emasculate your man and you have that type of same judgment or bully system on them. So bully women and then bully men. How do you
Yeah.
see them do that?
So,
Where
I
do they
mean,
fall?
it's kind of a two-parter. Generally speaking, wounded feminine are also in their wounded masculine. So I don't really want to spend a ton of time on titles because I mean, you're welcome to pull up the graphic that you pulled up the last time we talked because this is really just like, they're easy categories to kind of title certain feelings and certain personality traits in. It doesn't mean that like, it doesn't really mean anything. If you're like wounded feminine or wounded masculine or like healthy feminine or healthy masculine, it's like, I don't mean that in the stereotypical sense of masculine and femininity. I'm specifically talking about like energy here. And so I want to make that clear for those that are listening that I'm not talking about like just feminine versus femininity in a modern sense of like feminism. That's not the context of what I'm talking about this in. So I mean, I'm going to describe myself because I had really bad wounded femininity and I had really bad wounded masculine energy. And I emasculated my husband, and I had never had any female friends. I pretty much I was so resistant to it. I mean, I unfortunately probably did hurt other women, and I tried not to attack them, but there were definitely times where I would in the past, and I'm very ashamed of those, and they never felt good. So I want to say I had a subdued version of that, but ultimately like it comes from that wounded masculinity, or femininity, sorry, the wounded feminine energy comes from a place of like, I feel very angry because I'm not sufficient. Someone has put you down so much that you're just like, well, I'm not going to be good enough. So therefore, I need to put down everyone else around me that is what I deem to be good enough. There's a lot of shame. Like, oh, well, you're not sexy enough, or you've had like sexual trauma. Like, there's so much shame. And so by seeing another woman who feels safe being sexy, you immediately are like, well, she's a threat, right? Because you experience some form of shame. So wounded feminine energy is shame, it's anger, it's frustration, it's an inability to trust, right? And see, that's why women attack each other, because they're not willing to trust. They're not willing to trust that another woman is out for her best interest. She's like, oh, well, she wants my husband, or she wants my man. Like there's like immediately like this cutthroatness that exists with wounded feminine energy. And it's really tough because we can transfer that to sons, especially for women who are mothers, and it can play out in a very, very negative, like the domino effect is real and it can be really insane. But I don't want to steer too far in that direction. And then when it comes to like, wounded masculinity, it's like no one's good enough. There's no level of trust. There's some similarities between the two, but there's no level of trust. You are seeking fulfillment from doing because you're the only one who's good enough. So you're the only one that can actually do the job. You're the only one that can trust yourself, and nothing or no one will ever be good enough for you. And you have to realize where that comes from, because it's weird because it's like you think that no one else is good enough, but at the same time, you're not willing to support yourself. So you self-shame and self-deprecate at the same time while saying no one else is good enough. And the reason no one else is good enough, because in essence, you're over here and you're like, oh, well, I'm the only person who can do this job. But actually, you also feel like shit about yourself at the exact same time. So how can those coexist? It's a very like really chaotic and disruptive like internal environment. And so this is how women emasculate men, because they're like, well, you didn't take out the trash. Like, I asked you 7 times. Like, duh, of course you're not good enough. You know what I mean? Like, or, oh, working out, or, oh, you gained weight. And, oh, geez, like, you're not even trying. Like, they automatic, before women even open their mouths, their man is already not good enough. So the men are like, okay, well, I'm not good enough, so I shouldn't even bother trying. So instead of encouraging, the man is supposed to do, as you well know. And so women are literally trying to put down before they, like, there's no encouragement. There's just, you know what, you're enough. You're just not good enough. That's what's being translated when women bitch and complain about their husbands, or bitch and complain about their partners, and are like, okay, well, you're just, like, oh, well, you didn't do this right. Like, no, I'm just going to do the laundry. Just stop doing the laundry, because you always end up mixing the whites or with the colors, and it ruins everything. And, like, so on and so forth. And so it's really tough, because we as women, like, when I discovered that I had these traits, it was literally like, I wasn't shaming myself, wasn't even aware that I was doing these things to my husband, and I wasn't aware that I was even doing these things to other women, in terms of, like, attacking them, being jealous, and secretly doing underhanded things, whether it was saying, like, oh, you don't want to work with so and so because she's like, this is what she did to me. You know what I mean? Like, and stopping all those things, I had to acknowledge that I was the culprit. But it wasn't because I was at fault. It was just because I didn't know, and I was just reacting in what I thought was going to keep me safe. We take on these attributes because we want to be kept safe. Our brains are like, you know what, this is how we keep ourselves safe. This is how we protect ourselves from hurt. And in doing so, we end up demolishing all relationships around us. And then we're over here, we're like, oh, why am I miserable? It's because we need to do another level of deep healing that hasn't taken place yet. And so, like, I still apologize to my husband profusely, because I'm like, I cannot even, like, I feel so ashamed, but I don't take that personally for myself. But I'm just like, I was such a dumbass. Like, I cannot believe that I would, I was putting down before my mouth was even, and women have this amazing ability. Well, it's not actually amazing, but it is kind of amazing at the same time, to be able to cut with our looks, right? Like, we can cut with, like, our energy. We can, like, make someone feel like shit before we even open our mouths, by just, looking at them, or our body language. Our body language is so strong. And so, my husband still has, like, trauma from the way I've responded to him when he's tried to, like, bring things up, or ask for things, or ask for help, because I'm just like, well, immediate judgment, immediate, like, oh, well, you're not good enough body language, right? And so we as women are like, well, how come, what is that serving us? Ultimately, is it serving us? Because ultimately, deep down inside, what we really want is, we want someone to take on the of what we're trying to do. We're trying to do everything. We're trying to and we always say, like, people who are in their wounded feminine are always like, well, if there was just another me, except you'll never find another you, because even you are not good enough, like. And so being able to flip that script and be like, what is it just going to be like? And for men that are transitioning from wounded masculinity to healthy masculine energy, I'm not going to speak as much into that, because that is, that's your wheelhouse, really. That's not mine. But for women that are experiencing their wounded masculine energy and transitioning into a healthy masculine energy, in order to get there, because healthy masculine energy for women is by doing, but you do from creating, and you do it from a sense of alignment. And it's not feeling like you need to do, because that's where you get your self-worth. So the doing looks very, very different. And so if you're in a relationship and you're like, oh, I want to stop putting down, you have to be willing to see your own goodness, and you have to be willing to receive and to ask for help, and to just open up and be like, oh, what would it be like if I just got rid of this pressure for perfection? There is no such thing as perfection. What if I just allow him to just learn the way he learns? And for men, like, they have to learn by doing. And so I really had to let go, and was like, you know what, I'm just going to allow him to, F it up, and he's going to learn, take like 6 times, but I'm just going to have to be patient, and I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to let him learn the way he should learn. And I'm going to support him the entire way, and not demean him. Right? I'm not going to belittle him in his efforts, because men and women learn very differently. And so, it meant that I had to totally remove my judgment, my self-judgment, putting myself up on a pedestal. I was like, I don't need to be on a pedestal. There's no need for me to be there. So why have I been dictating my husband from this like little pedestal this whole time? And even women too, like, why am I, you know, attacking other women because I'm like, oh, well, you're again, the same thing. You have to be perfect or you're shit. You're not good enough. You don't have the attributes and you'll never get there. That willingness in order to get to this place where you're willing to see other people in a positive light, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. If you're experiencing any of the wounded feminine or masculine energy traits, it's like there's no willingness there. Willingness, it's just like it's like you're living straight from reaction and not from intention. Or maybe you are getting intended on hurting people. That's a whole other level of like, trauma that is, I don't want to go into, at least for the context of this thing, this podcast. But yeah, it's like, it's so like, and even, my head is spinning because it's like so intricate and it's so deep, the wounded aspects of these that it really is like, and that's why I have my podcast and I do this work, because I'm like, let's get women into realizing that they're emasculating their husbands. Like, let's start that process and that self vulnerability and that self transparency. Because men, I'm like looking at the men in society, like, we are never going to get that chivalry that we want, the help that we want, the care that we want, the love that we keep emasculating the men in our lives. And it is so unfortunate. And women more and more are waking up, realizing that, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I was even encouraging this kind of negative behavior that wasn't serving me. Like, women are over here like, oh, but how come my man isn't like chasing me? Well, he's not chasing you because you have already deemed that he's not good enough. Like, of course he's not going to chase you. Of course you don't feel like there's any romance in your relationship, because why bother for him to try? If he tries, he's going to get reprimanded for it. So like, duh, of course he doesn't want to try. It's not safe for him to do so. You haven't cultivated a safe and nurturing environment in order for him to come and show you that he loves you, because you have already told him that he's not good enough by your behavior, your language, and your words. So it is, that we could go into that and talk about that for eons. But it is something that, when women are attacking other women and attacking other men, it's painful. They're just reacting out of trauma, and what they know best, and they're seeking a sense of healing, but they just don't know how to do it. They don't have someone to, and they're not even willing to have someone come into their lives to show them what that path looks like.
Yeah, I think it's really important what you just said there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best to acknowledge, and hopefully I'm translating it correctly, because like I think that you dropped some nuclear bombs in that monologue. So I'm going to try and like, all right, here's what I got. Let's see if I did it well here. I'm trying to like, all right, did I hear you right? I agree that you were like, being feminine is not feminist. You're like, that's a different thing. No, being in with yourself is not the same as projecting hate out to, you need to be something different. So I saw that piece, and then I was like, okay, when a wounded woman is doing what they're doing, especially towards other women, it's because they feel not sufficient, not good enough. And shame and doubt seem to be core pieces for like this, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. It seems like that's really deep in there. But because they feel not enough, they now see somebody who has something that they believe they should have or want as a threat. And so they see women not as somebody they could be like, I'm really happy that she has that. But because she has that, it's just validating I'm not enough. And she's going to try and take what I have because she's better. And so women are a threat. And I have to put her down with gossip or judgments, or put her down so that I feel better or look better in the face of somebody who has something I believe I deserve or want, because
And I
it's a
want to,
wounded state.
yes. And I want to clarify that wounded feminine comes from a female figure. So the self and the shame and the doubt that they're experiencing came from a woman in their life. So I want to make that very clear, because, And it's horrible because it'll, and I know so many stories of this where women are like, oh, I didn't realize I was passing that on to my daughter, criticizing about their weight, criticizing about the way they dress, criticizing how they're behaving. Oh, you're acting like a whore or whatever, all this stuff. It's because it came from a woman in your life. And so it's very different because, the wounded masculine energy is going to come from a man in your life was like putting you down. And so the traits become different because then what we seek and what we feel in terms of our actions is respected. It's like a different pattern. But I just wanted to clarify that a wounded feminine, that origination of self-shame and self-doubt and just self-deprecation would have come from a female figure in their life at some point in time.
Super important. And I found the same thing too when working with women. These curses for this area all came from a woman.
Yeah.
They did. This was mom or somebody who came in like this. I found the same thing whenever I would work with women. I'm like, where did that come from? And they're like, well, that's what my mom used to tell me. You're like, damn, that's a generational curse.
Yeah.
And then you're going to put that on your little girl. Now she's going to have to fight this curse. One of you has to break this. Is it going to be your daughter or is it going to be you? One of these things, like who's going to stop the cycle? But yeah, the shame and the doubt, then it turns into the projection. And it seems like one of the telltale signs for almost every example seems to be paying attention to the judgments. It seems to be judgment is at the core of I'm not okay. And the way that women seem to project with not only their body language, their looks, and their words, it seems to come off as some form of a judgment. Not good enough. I don't like that. You're not right. You're not good. You're not it's a judgment. And it seems like judgments is a sign of I'm not actually okay in here. And so I project how not okay in here I am on you.
Right.
And it's like the giant neon flashing light that I'm not okay usually will manifest and catch the judgments.
And that's the wounded masculine energy, because for the wounded feminine energy, other people are too good, and that's not okay. How dare you be perfect, because they were never perfect for either their mom or their sisters or whatever. So if someone else in their perception is being seen as having it all, then that's like, I need to go and cut that off for them, because that's not allowed. It's not something I'm allowed to have. So making that distinction there, because yes, the wounded masculine energy is going to be like the judgment, okay, well, and I mean, the wounded feminine energy is judgment from a different place. But especially in that interpersonal relationship style, when it comes to the wounded masculine, it's like, oh yeah, judgment is like where everything comes from.
Yeah, I see it on both sides. So I agree with you. It seems like the judgment is it may be a judgment a different way, a different attack, but still judging. Yeah. And so it seems like this is if you catch yourself, if you have an awareness of I'm judging a lot, judging myself against and judging them for them. If there's judgments both inside and outside, you're like, shit, I have wounds. This should be and I liked when you said, there's a part where you as soon as you find a trigger or something is wrong, I was like, good. There's your wound. There's your thing. There, you found it. This is a good thing, not a bad thing, because now you know. Because if you're saying that he's not enough, or being able to try to do the thing that's ironic when you said bitch and complain, you mix the whites with the colors, and then you said a sentence that is so powerful, but gets just thrown to the side. You mix the whites and the colors, you ruin everything.
Yeah.
Wait a second. You just told your guy you'll ruin everything. Everything we have is ruined by you. You ruin everything. Yet it was an impulsive, chaotic sentence. It was not really it probably isn't even half true. But man, my girl told me because I tried to do good by doing laundry to help. And she told me I ruin everything. Damn, that was me trying. I was just trying to help, and again, not enough, not enough, not enough. And this stuff takes a toll on all sides, on people. This takes a toll on your girlfriends, your daughters, your husband, your boys. This takes a toll. If you're telling people, you ruin everything. But by projecting that judgment, you're ruining everything. And that's where I think it's catching these things is so important, because them even saying that is what ruins everything. You're killing the souls around you because you won't notice your own judgments that lead to wounds. That's a heavy thing. There's another part I want to get into here. Hopefully, so far, am I so far getting at least like this is what you meant? I just want
Yeah.
to not be misquoting. Okay, good. But man, let me just tell you. Okay, powerful thing that you said is women do not take account how powerful and cutting their looks can be. Like, very right. like, like I've seen Andrea does it with me. Sometimes she'll goof around, or she'll just stare at me, and I'll be like, "The heck, what? What?" And she's like, "I just know that if I stare at you long enough, you're gonna think you did something wrong." And
Yeah.
she'll just laugh because she'll goof with me because I'm like, "Babe, what? What? I'm what? What are you staring at me like that for?" Like, just the look, but also the nonverbals have probably triggered more arguments than the conversations. An eye roll. Ugh. Like the nonverbals are extremely loud from women. Yet, like, guys are like, that's cool. And like, even if we do like what would be a manifestation for how we would think it would be the same level, it would those eye rolls and those uh, heavy
Yeah.
sighs, like that's the equivalent to a guy if we were talking like me football spiking my coffee mug because I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's that loud. It's that loud for
Oh
us.
yeah.
But it's like, well, it goes into the next part where it's like, first J that's not okay is the judgment, but it seems like the other more dangerous J is justification. It
Hmm.
seems like, well, of course I did because he should adjust. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're alleviating sin from what you've done that you would hate done to yourself and making it that you were actually right to do so. What an amazing system. I treat people a way I have hated my whole life, but it's okay when I do it because there may be some truth to it, but there's also some denial and some excuses in there. It's not all true. And it's very interesting how people can justify being the one who treats somebody terribly, but then goes to bed trying to convince everybody and mostly themselves that I'm a good person. I'm a good human. I'm a good one when you just destroyed the souls of the people you say you love the most. It's
Absolutely.
a tough deal on this one. All right. I want to do a really cool thing with you. This is a thing, and I have a really hard question that hasn't been answered, and I cannot wait for your answer. Okay.
Okay.
So I did a thing where it gets into like when you were talking about like what do women need to do for guys to chase you? Like I really enjoyed you saying they live from reaction and not from they live from reaction and not from intention, but they don't have a willingness to do better for whatever their role in the relationship would be. There's not really a willingness to try and like make this relationship a grow thing. There's like a nagging instead of how do we grow? There's not a receive, it's more of a complain you into some form of, control or subduing or, compliance. I'm going to nag you into like, you didn't do the dishes. You didn't take out I told you 7 times. Like this just push you into like, this is what you're supposed to do. I've got a two-part. One I'm going to share from the men's side. I'm going to share guys' side because I've been quiet on the boys' side. So I'm going to share a little bit of the boys' side because I did a survey for the guys and the girls. So I'm going to share the guys' side. I asked the men, what is a man's role in a relationship? Like, what's our job? Like, what do we believe it is? And like, not in any toxic way. Just what do we think our job is? Why would a woman want to be with a man? What do we think our job is? What are we supposed to do? I have the list. And I think they came up with 9 things. Okay. And I just want you to check out the list and tell me if you agree or disagree with the men's list. This was about 100 guys. So this wasn't like 2 dudes. This was 100 guys, and they compiled to like, we all agree on this answer. Okay. First one is the protector. And I think protector is such an undervalued thing because we're not under attack all the time. We're not in like Viking age and there's not like, raiding all the time. And so it's not like every day there's somebody who's trying to attack you and then a man has to protect his girl. Even though we are, and ask your men, ready at any time to have your back. We would fight a lion for you. We know we're getting killed, but we'll do it so you have enough time to get out of there. And that's a selfless, self sacrificing, I do not get safety, security so you can position. This means I put myself in harm's way so you don't have to. Protector, guys are like that. You do. We do that for our people, our women and our children. That's our job. Okay. Provider. Guys actually feel good giving. When you said women are to receive, guys actually feel good to give. And if my girls want money or they want anything, it's not going to be like, well, what are you going to do? Or why do you need that for? I'll be like, of course, babe. Yeah, no problem. Take it. And we don't, there's not a lot for healthy men, especially. There's not going to be this like pushback on like, need something. Well, of course, if I can provide, I shall provide. I can't, it makes us feel fulfilled to give. We're givers. Hunt and gather, bring to the village. Here is the deer, you distribute. We love to give. We're happy to do. Next is fixers. This is why venting is also difficult for guys, is we just want to fix. What can I do to fix it? I want to fix. I want to fix. I want to fix. If it's broken, I'll fix it. If I can fix it, it will be fixed. And sometimes me doing my best to fix it may break it more, but I really have good intention to fix. We're going to fix. If we can fix it, we will. We'll be out on the roof. We'll be on the car. We'll be in the garage. We'll build it. We'll create it. We'll put the pipes together. We'll fix it. And, you know, my girls maybe someday will appreciate something more because they don't know why all the lights never go out, all the doors close correctly, all of the things just around here work, why the toilet wasn't working when they went to school, but now it's working when they got home. They don't know why everything in here works. And they're going to wonder why there are things that they're just fix themselves. It's going to be very interesting. But we're fixers. We like to fix. And that's why venting is hard, because we're like, you want to fix it? You want to fix that? I can help you with that. You want to fix it? And they don't, but we're fixers. Next, and this is where it starts getting in a more subjective point of view, stability. Guys feel like we have less of an emotional reaction. Like we don't always go like, oh God, everything's bad, we got to panic. Like we're going to be more stable in that. And so in crisis, men, like we're more clear-minded. They can handle the stress better in real time. And then once it's all dealt with, then they can turn the emotions on and deal with it. So this would be in like conflict and war and battle and whatever. Men are like, we just handle the crisis better. And then like, well, the feelings may rush us later, but in the moment we can stay focused and more stable in real time. You know, so they say, all right, we bring stability. What about being objective? We're like, well, guys are more likely to be objective and more logical versus the emotions and the feel aspect in the moment. So they'll be more focused on the tactics or how to put it together versus like, how did I feel about it in the moment? So they said, we'll be more objective in situations and try and be more fair because it's not about my feelings. It's about what is right, not who is right. Now, here's one that you may enjoy. Men argue, especially in relationships, that men have more empathy because they have more empathy for their women, they have empathy for their children, and they have empathy for their other men. But a lot of the guys, when I did a survey with them, is do they believe their woman has empathy for them?
And the answer is no.
Every guy was like, they don't care about my feelings.
Yeah.
Maybe well-being,
the answer
yes.
to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well-being, correct. Like, do you have a sandwich? Is your laundry done? Did you get your shoes? Do you have your stuff for work? All the well-being stuff, that's done. But do you care about his feelings? No.
And that's because a woman is not able to feel herself. So of course she's not able to be empathetic to a man because she's not willing to be empathetic to herself. So the answer is simple, but yes, I knew the answer before you even said it.
Good. We're agreeing so far. This is the guy's answers. Yep. But they said we're more empathetic simply because we can be empathetic for our woman's needs, but they cannot for ours.
Yep.
And they're like, so we argue, we have more empathy. They did not argue with babies. You know, women are winning when it comes to empathy for babies. They can just sense what the baby needs, and guys are like, I got nothing. What? You take it. Like, so babies, they win. But when it comes to like their relationship, they say more.
Yep.
Presiders, they do feel that when it comes to the social pressures of society, when it comes to the pressures that are put on men and women are more likely to fall for social pressures, conformity, and comparison than guys are. This is why you see a lot more ads are geared towards women. Like, all the women are doing this, you should too. And guys, I was like, all right, well, what about, underwear ad, or you need to dress like this, or you need to have this thing. And the guys are like, I don't give a shit about that. I'm not changing any of my stuff for that. I'm happy with my t-shirt and jeans. I don't need none of that shit. But the girls are like, we need that, or we need that. I want that. We need this. we're way less likely as presiders to fall for outside stuff. And so when we look at the influences, women are influenced from the outside. They're influenced by that social media post. They're influenced by that ad. They're influenced by that woman who's the Jones effect and the comparisons. They're influenced by that. And that means their judgment system, especially wounded side, would be triggered. And then they'll try and change things to match what they wanted. Well, guys, they don't give a crap about that, but they will change themselves for their women. And so guys are like, I'll change me only for you. But women will change themselves for outside, but don't change often for men. They can, but not often. It's going to be more for like, I want that, I want that, I want that. And so this is where it gets really tricky is like, well, guys, like we should be leading because we don't fall for the outside nonsense to change her, but she'll fall for the outside nonsense and I'll change myself for her. That's backwards. We should be in the front so that way I go, baby, you're beautiful the way you are. Please don't change yourself for that nonsense. Don't fall for it. That's an ad. That's somebody else's insecurity. That's their thing. Don't change you for that. I love you. Don't be that. So guys are like, we're going to say we're probably better at presiding for that leadership role. Don't fall for stuff. Aim to please. I think women forget that guys inside are little boys. And little boys who are like, look how strong I am. Look what I can pick up. I'm going to jump off this thing. Look what I built. Look what I made. Look what I can do. Like, we want you to go like, yeah, that's my dude. Yeah. God, they love cheerleaders. Guys are always trying to impress you, get the touchdown, build the thing, win the award, get the trophy, do the thing, right? And man, they love their cheerleaders. How can I impress my girl? And as soon as you stop being impressed, it's really tough for him to go, I'm still motivated to do things too. Because inside, we're all still little boys that are like, we want to show you how strong we are. We want to show you what we can do. And look what I made. We love the cheerleader. We love it. And so we try to please you and try to impress you. Tell me if you've seen dudes at the gym. 1 second he's struggling. As soon as a cute girl comes by, now all of a sudden he can lift twice as much. Like he just got super strength. Like, where did this come from? Inside, we want to impress. And so guys aim to please women. We also do the hard jobs. If it's the get scubby and gross and covered in dirt and muck and the gross stuff or the tar or under the car or you name it, guys are like, we'll do the gross stuff. We'll be cleaning, we'll replace the toilet and there's crap all over the place. Well, we'll do that. We'll do the gross jobs, the heavy, nasty jobs. We'll do all of those happily. And these are the ones that guys say, this is what we do. That's what men's job is. This is where we are. And one of the also pointed out, if you look at every single thing on this man's list, if you look at the whole list, every single thing on this list is meant to serve others. Everything on here is a job to help other people. Not one thing on here is a man taking. They're like, our job is to give. Our job is to go, how do we give and serve? How do I help you? How do I make it better? How can I, provide, preside, and how do we protect? How do we do these things? So this was the men's list. Now, this is where, we can get into wavy lines and stuff like that, which is funny. It's an observation. But when it came down to, and this is just men in relationships, it's not fathers and mothers. This is just relationships. So like, what's our job? What's our role? This is where it got tricky for the guys. I said, okay, I see what you got here. See what you got. What's a woman's role, man? And the guys, you probably would have laughed out loud because I'm sitting here talking like, what's her job? And it was like, they had no idea. They're like, I actually don't know her job, man. I don't know. And I was like, all right, if you could make it, if you could make her job, where would we go? And this is where the guys settled on. This is the request they had for women. This is the whole list, by the way. It's like 2 sentences. They said, be nice. Just be freaking nice. I'll settle for being nice. Don't judge. Don't nag. Don't put me down. Don't emasculate. Don't be mean. Don't not cheer me on. Just be nice. And one of the guys says, it feels like sometimes I come home and it's so cold and it's not warm. And I want to come home to my lowest lane after I Superman today. And I come home to kryptonite and I feel worse when I get home. Just be nice. They said the things that they want most was nurture, intimacy, kind appreciation, and support. That was their list. That's like that would be where I would start. Now, we did get far further into like the depth of this, but like they were like, I don't have any she needs to go fight the intruders. I don't have she needs to make more money than me. I don't have she needs to have a degree. I don't have she needs to do this and do this and do this and do this. I just want to come home and be nice. Please don't be mean to me when I come home. That's where our guys were. They didn't actually know, though, what is the role of a woman. And the women also had a very interesting answer for this, but I want to give you that side. That's the boy side. What is the role of a woman? They had no clarity, and even the men were all crickets. They had no idea.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so, this is why I love feminine and masculine energy, because it's like they just fit together and it's so beautiful and so amazing. I mean, the men are actually pretty, most of what they described is essentially feminine energy in a nutshell. Women are supposed to receive. We're literally supposed to be soft, to be flexible, to be encouraging, to be supportive, to be happy. Literally, it's like when we're happy and when we are filled with desire and pleasure and contentment, it just seeps to everyone else. And men are drawn to that. They're drawn to women just content because they're like, ooh, I want some of that. You know what I mean? Like, because men are doing, of course, like they're do, go, 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 go. And so they want that I want to say it is a foundation. It's a foundation of just like, it's funny because women are chaotic, but they're also very soft and very like, just like peaceful. And I mean, I say this in the context of healthy feminine energy because a woman, if she's not in touch with herself, will not distribute any, well, she won't show any of these attributes. And so, yeah, I mean, like, and I wish my husband was here because he would be like, yeah, it's night and day compared to when I was in my wounded masculine energy compared to when I was in my healthy feminine energy, because I am just like, at any point in time, if he's like, he likes just to sit by me because I'm like just calm now. I'm very calm. I'm very like peaceful. I'm very like spontaneous in a fun way where I'm like, oh, it'll be like 9 o'clock at night. The kids need to go be in pajamas. And I'm like, do you guys want to go get ice cream? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is the best ever. Like mom is just cool. She's fun. She's like, chill. And, I'm like, oh, we'll play video games. Like, yeah, let's go play video games. Like I'm the one initiating it now. I'm the one who's initiating the fun and the pleasure. And as a result of that, I'm like, my husband's, getting way more sex now because I'm like, oh, I can feel, and allowing myself to feel is like, okay, that ties in well. And so, yeah, I mean, the job of a woman is to literally have fun, enjoy life, and to nurture and that's where, if for example, and I say this, in my context, it's like I do feel called to help other women. So I do have this additional thing that I do, but it stems from my like I create from the energy of, oh, I'm just so content and my life is like a 5-star resort every single day and I need to women how to do this, right? But like my nurture, like I'm able to actually nurture my husband and encourage him even when he's making mistakes. I'm like, it's okay, you know what I mean? Like don't, I'm able to finally give him the space and the encouragement that he really needed this whole time, but I was never able to provide for him because I was too busy demoting him, right? Like belittling like his actions. And so, yeah, I mean, like that's our job. Nurture, have, be playful, feel desire, and let everything else come to you. Let everything you want come to you, exactly what you said. Like the man wants to give, he wants to, if she's like, oh, I want to go, I think we should go on a trip. He's like, great, let's go on a trip, like let's like organize things and like let's go on a trip. What do you want to do? And so, yeah, I mean, I think the men are pretty bang on. I think that, for a woman, it's really, really triggering to think, in today's modern society, it's like, well, that's following the patriarchy and like stupidness. And I'm like, let's just move beyond that conversation in the first place, because that's a whole load of judgment. That's not doing anybody any good. And let's go actually into what your soul and your body is craving. And for women, that is what we are craving. We crave to receive. We crave to be taken care of. We crave to be soft and to nurture from a place of playfulness, from a place of just like, yeah, I have desires and I have cravings. And I mean from the old, not from like just a superficial perspective. And we can support everyone in our life by just being. That's it. It's like, let's just remove all the expectations. Let's just be. And what does that look like? And I mean, for me, in my context and the women that I coach, it's like, oh my gosh, I can just, if I love to cook, great. I want to do more of this. And oh, I want to have a little business and maybe it's temporary. That's fine. But like, that's what she wants. And then, the man is like, great, let's do it. Like, what can I do to encourage you to, and I mean, I wouldn't be here in this place if it wasn't for my husband's encouragement. Like, he encouraged me to do the photography, to help women, to start the coaching business. He was like, I mean, it was his belief that fueled this. And then my belief came after. And so, that the men, I think that the way that you described it, even the attributes, for the men are pretty, I mean, bang on from what I feel like I accurately know of feminine and masculine energy. And I think it's going to be women that are, belittling the men and being like, oh, well, why can't you do this? And why can't you do that? And, that sense of frustration, it's like, that's why you and I exist, right? In our respective coaching roles, because it's like, women have a lot of work. And then men who are coming from like feeling emasculated to back to the healthy masculine, and and trying to encourage their women to do so, it's a tough battle, but it is worth it. I do believe 100% it is worth. So yeah, I think that, yeah, those were pretty accurate.
That's pretty a good answer too. I put the list together. Like they're like, man, she goes so fast. What was the list? I've got women receive. They're soft, flexible. They encourage. They're happy. Be happy. Have desire and seek pleasure and contentment and be impulsive and fun. Like bring fun. Uh,
Yep.
be interesting. Let's play, nurture, appreciate, build here, and intimacy and connection. Like this is the
Yep.
things that I grabbed in from like what's a woman's job? Like
Yep.
sounds kind of pretty great.
It
And like
is. It's amazing. And it's so fulfilling when a woman is able to be in that space and she feels safe doing so. That's why I say, like, my life is like a 5-star resort. Like, I pinch myself like multiple times throughout the day because I'm like, this is insane. This gets to be my life, and that my family gets to experience this level of happiness, and that I get to encourage and foster, type of healthy energies, because I say, healthy masculine, feminine energy, they're just perspectives, right? So it's like, it's amazing that I get to be able to foster this and to be able to work on this in my relationship with my husband, because it's like, holy crap, like, how could I have missed this, for the majority of my marriage thus far? And to be able to help other people in this process, right? It's like, it's mind blowing. And I'm more than grateful that I get to be able to experience this, and that I discovered this feminine energy and this work for myself, because it truly, I mean, totally 180 in my life. And it really is amazing.
yeah, that's powerful. Powerful and helpful because at least it's like here's what you can do.
Yeah.
I have so many people just go like love yourself and then there's no actual thing to do. That's like it's so helpful. And even the guys were like, we don't know what they're supposed to do either. Like
Right.
they didn't know. Let's keep it on this topic of like when you can tell like this woman is interesting or you're interested in the woman, how women flirt, and then I found the pattern of commitment killing. And here's what I mean by that is women seek safety security, correct?
Yeah.
They want safety security. I want that. But how do you get chosen by a mate? There's certain things that you do. And when you see a woman on a first date and the activities, the actions, like what are some of the behaviors of the way a woman would be on like a first date? Like if you were explaining like, hey, you're going to go on a date, would you be like, go and nag about him, complain about everything he does, tell him he's worthless, tell him he does everything wrong and ruins everything? Like, would you be like, this is the way? You guys love it. What
Yeah.
behavior, what body language, what way do you like this is how women flirt. How explain it so the guys can go like, how do I know?
Oh, sure. So I think that this is really interesting. Because so I'm going to reference human design again, and for people that are, it's like a more extensive. I don't want to use the word astrology because it's not like that, but it's so much more intensive and in depth. And I say this because a lot of men, for example, like for you, I looked up your human design. You do have a very strong intuitive sense, but not every guy is going to have that. For example, my husband doesn't. He doesn't have any intuitive sense whatsoever. So he can't have, and I say that because the intuitive sense is like, it's kind of like a radar. So, for some men, they are going to be able to feel whether that woman is right for them or not. And they can use that feeling. They can just tell themselves that they're good at listening to their body and their souls. They can be like, yeah, no, I just get a bad vibe, For people like my husband, he's not necessarily going to have that ability. He's going to be able to he's going to have to use other tools to be able to read whether that's a good woman or not for him. Now, I will say, even though my husband doesn't have an intuitive sense, he still felt that there was something about me. And he was like, yeah, like she's the one. And that was me being in my chaotic, unhealthy, masculine state. So I would say, if you are going on a date and you are looking for a woman who is in her healthy feminine energy, she's going to be really freaking relaxed. And I say that because, relaxation comes from the ability to, like, you just know you're the shit. Like, like for me, and it's not a pride sense. It's not like, oh, I'm like, I need to like whatever. Like it's almost like, and you can start even observing this when you go in public places, like even on the subway or whatever. You can just see like some people are just so whatever. That's what feminine energy is. Like if someone, like people, like we were in a car accident last year and people were like, you don't really seem that bothered by it. And I'm like, well, we came out safe. Like I don't need to spend all my time freaking out, crying like over this thing. I was like, it was fine. Like that's feminine energy. Feminine energy is like, I don't need to be bothered by things. Not really. The solution's going to show up for itself. Like, sure, I might get a little frustrated, but then it's what I need to work through. And so, and for me, that's a sign. And so it's like, I really rarely get frustrated ever now. Like there's very few things that trigger me. Even if someone, like I have clients that are like, oh my gosh, I'm like an hour behind. And I was like, listen, I was like, that's fine. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to work. And they're like, oh, they're like, you're so chill about it. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I be? I'm just here. I was like, if I needed to reschedule you, I'd say, you know what, let's just reschedule you. And they're like, oh, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, sure. That's totally fine. Like you don't, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, you don't need to apologize. Like it's not a big deal. But because that's not the normal reaction. The normal reaction would be like, oh my gosh, how late are you? It would be like such a big reaction. So a woman who's relaxed, like a very, very good sign. Now there is such a thing as a woman being too much in her feminine energy. There is such a thing as that where she's like lazy, needs everything handed to her on a silver platter. That's not a good sign either. We don't want laziness. We want, like spunk and women who are really passionate. That's a good sign. And I don't mean necessarily in politics, because I feel like that can be that in my opinion is almost a sign of like feminism, and that can very heavily be a trait of like wounded masculine energy because they're trying to fix something, so I would say, kind of make sure you keep the categories kind of in line. But a woman that's really passionate, like for me, like when I get talking about style wardrobe, and like it's so funny because my husband and I will go to church and I'm like, that guy's pants drive me crazy. And my husband's like, only you would recognize that, like seriously. And I go off and I'm like, you can tell because of the cut here and the cut here. And I was like, well, he sits on his way. I'm like, it's just horrible. And so my husband's like, he tolerates it because he's like, yes, we know you have an eye for style and wardrobe and men's and like all these things. Like I just have an eye for detail. And I go off on tangents. I'll go off on like a 30-minute tangent about pants. And my husband's just like, all right. So it's a good sign, if a woman is like, oh yeah, like she has passions and she's very clearly like, activated by that. I would say, if a woman is showing like any kind of like impatience or like just kind of a sense of like mopiness, like I don't really know if I want to be here, and you can feel the judgment, done. It's a game over. It's an automatic mass. That's like the only red flag in my opinion. It's like, yep, nope. Like if you can feel her like judging you. Now I will say, and this is like, for example, like I'm a Virgo going into astrology. Like I have really, really high standards. And my husband and I joke because he chews with his mouth open and I'm like, God help me. I don't know how I married you because this is just so annoying. And he doesn't do it all the time. And he's like, yeah, I guess it is amazing. But like, I'm not necessarily like, I wasn't judging it because I was like, even when I think back of when we were dating and when we were going on dates, it was like, I was looking for the things that were really, really important to me. We felt morally, how, whether he was nice, whether he was like, patient with me and things like that, and like not trying to shove things down my throat. And so, things like chewing or whatever, honestly, don't even remember that being a thing when we were dating, but it was like, coming from reverse and a guy, kind of feeling out a woman. I really think that, try to avoid a woman that's like judging you. And again, I think it's going to rely on the guy to kind of be in tune with himself and to really get detail oriented when it comes to what he's observing. So I think kind of starting to like observe women a little bit more, And I think also the more you hang out with women and, I think listening to this podcast is going to be very opening because it's like just discovering what it is like for a healthy woman in her feminine energy and what it's like for a woman who's in her wounded feminine energy or wounded masculine energy is going to be really eye opening because it's like, how should a woman react? Right. Like even if, for example, a guy is late to a date and we're done, red flag. Don't hang out with her again. Cause I would never, like, if a guy was late for a date, I might be like, just as long as you're communicating, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be late. Totally fine. I don't care. Sure, there's traffic. Like, whatever. Maybe you couldn't decide what to wear. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you're not, like that's a bad sign. It's just cool. Well, maybe explain why you were late. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, a woman shouldn't write you off because of that. Same thing, like if it's you're on a date and the woman's like Joe and you feel like she's trying to leave because she saw that, I don't know, you're like 5'7" and she's like, oh, whatever, red flag, just peace out, like don't even bother. Like, and I mean, for me, I'm super blunt, so like I would just lay it all out on the table right then and there on the first date. Or depending on what my intuition is saying, I'll like feel things out and feel things through. And if a woman's like resisting for you paying for, everything, then that might be a red flag. Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why is she resisting that? If you offer to pay for the first date, it's like, why the resistance? I mean, I'm like, yeah, I want to be taken care of. Like, let's start here. You know what I'm saying? So I think those are kind of the top things that I would pay attention for, that are going to be easy to read from the outside. I think if a woman who is really like, you can kind of tell what she's there for. Like, is she there for ulterior motives and just wants like a one night stand? She could be relaxed, sure, but she also might be like fidgety a little bit because it's like she's not really actually listening to what you're saying because she just wants something else. And I
Like
think
a
that
free
there's a
meal.
lot, yeah, there's a lot that can be understood by just kind of paying attention to the small details and just tuning into like your ability to listen and your ability to decipher, like, okay, what am I feeling from this girl? And trust that. I really think, men and women perceive each other very differently. And there's a lot to be said for, gut intuition and just your senses. Trust your senses and have a good idea of what you're looking for. A woman that's relaxed and a woman who's willing, like, I feel like a really good way of kind of testing whether a woman is open or not and in her healthy feminine is to throw something random out there and be like, okay, I know we agreed to like go out to dinner, but do you want to like go get ice cream? And if she's like, no, then it's like, well, why not? Are you so uptight and with your schedule that you just can't handle, you know what I mean? And it's a sign, like, do they want to spend more time with you? So I feel like there's a lot to be said because, like, one thing about healthy feminine energy is like flexibility is the name of the game in absolutely everything. And so if a woman is not in her healthy feminine, she will be very resistant. And we talked about this a little bit on the last time we talked, is like she needs structure, she needs a schedule, she needs to plan everything out in advance. And that comes from a need to be in control, which is unhealthy. And a woman doesn't need to feel in control. In fact, she gets what she wants by not feeling in control and letting go. And so throwing something in there random, I think is going to be a really, really good sign, and you'll get the reaction that you need from that woman. So like you could even be like, oh, well, it's like 9. Do you want to go bowling? I mean, there is nothing that my husband couldn't suggest. I mean, if I really didn't like it, honestly, on a first date, I would probably still do it because I'd be like, oh, okay, like why not? Or I'll suggest something. I'll be like, oh, if you still want to do something, maybe do you want to do this? And that's still a good sign. Like if she's like, oh, well, I might not want to, I don't know, go karting. I might not want to go karting, but I might want to go like get ice cream. And you can be like, great, cool. That's still fine. Even if she's still suggesting, that's still okay. So I think that is also a good little test.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces there when going into a date. There's a lot of things.
Yeah,
I even know from like the guy side, like watching a girl, like you can tell with the nonverbals. I think they're so loud.
for
I think
sure. They are
nonverbals
totally.
are so loud. And I even had one of those, like we were in the women's group. I'm like, what does it look like? Just no words. What's it look like when a girl is interested on a date versus not interested on a date? And you'll see like the mannerisms and the
Yeah.
playfulness and
Or like the touching the
the
hair
touching or
and
even the
yeah,
subtle touching him. Like,
yeah,
stop it. You stop
yeah.
you.
Hmm.
Like you can tell the interest that's there. Also, the dude's jokes are all hilarious. He's so funny. What an interesting dude. Like all of these things in the beginning, like man, I just nailed it with this girl. I just feel so good when I'm around her. She laughs at my stuff. She's interested in my hobby. She's flexible when it comes to, we were going to go do this, but then I was like, hey, let's try something else. And she's like, I'm down. Like, it
Yeah.
was just so cool, right? That vibe. I felt good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this
Yeah.
wasn't like, we're just trying to get some sex. This was just like, just the energy was wonderful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, so then I got into like, well, where does this go wrong? Because people choose people based on this beginning. Like very chivalrous. He loves to be there for you. He's doing all of these things on the date that made you very attractive. Like he's got all this potential that you really enjoy. And he loves the energy and loves the playfulness and the vibe and the flexibility, and it feels good. Well, then I started going, let's look at commitment levels. Well, when you guys aren't together, the amount of acceptance that you have for the other person's routines and things and how they are and hobbies and how much he hangs with his friends and plays video games and how much she does her thing and enjoys her hobbies and everybody's cool with everybody's stuff. Well, let's go ahead and take it to the next level. We moved in. Well, now our routines and our systems are on top of each other, and we both can't have it our way because we're imposing on the other person's way. And so now we have to figure out, well, where does my stuff go? And how does the makeup go here? And where does your shaving stuff go? And there's hair in the sink and there's makeup all over here. And then you left the socks here. And why didn't you put it in the hamper? You know, it goes there. And I like my dishes stacked. And who folds towels like this, you savage? Like now we're imposing on each other's space. And now all of the mannerisms change and the judgments start becoming different. And it's like, well, we have to do this and your friends come over too much. And when do we have our time? And can we pull back a little bit? Because you're just, when do we have us? We live together, but I feel like I never see you. And you're like, well, I'm doing the same stuff I used to do. And you used to tell me you loved it. You used to laugh at my jokes, but now me annoying. And then people go to the next level. They get married. And this is a subconscious aspect where people start becoming what they believe marriage is. Well, who's the marriage that you've seen the most of? You know, a lot of times I see people subconsciously become one of their parents. And it isn't like woman to woman, man to man. It's just whatever parent you identified with the most. And they start realizing, and it is an often thing when I go, do you see that you become like the man? I'll be like, you become the traits of your mother. Well, who did you marry? And they're looking at the traits of their wife and going, I married my dad. Damn it. Damn it. I did not, I don't like my dad, but somehow I married my dad. Like she does all the same stuff dad does and puts me down this way and never proud of me and never happy with the stuff I do. I'm never good enough. And I ended up marrying my dad and I feel like my mom. I just sit down, I shut up, I don't say anything. This is a tough relationship. And you're having a struggle there. And then let's go ahead and throw a human on top of it. Let's make some babies. Let's put some people in here. Now, when do we have any time for each other? What does the flirting or the mannerism look like? What does the time that we spend together look like? Where was the flexibility, the playfulness, the happiness, the joy, that the play touching? Your jokes are hilarious. I love the hobbies that you do. Well, now I don't have time for any of that. Now I need you to take care. We have responsibilities. You need to do this. You need to do that. Why didn't you take the garbage out? I told you 7 times. Why didn't you do this? And you start watching the pattern of what is happening with our dynamic because we chose each other for being this. And then now we've become this, and I've given you more safety, more security, more commitment, more resources, more of everything I have. Everything I have, I have given more. And it seems like the more that I have given, the less that I respect as far as like nurture, kindness, appreciation, the flexibility, happiness, desire, pleasure. And you're watching people in these dynamics going like, oh my, I've seen guys who are like, I haven't had sex with my wife maybe 2 times in 2 years. I'm like, what the heck happened? And so this is where the point I think is like, have you seen also the same pattern where the higher the commitment level, it seems more resistance there are to being the woman that she was on that first date? Being able to be that playful, fun version, and how you've almost had to bring her back from like whatever the curse is being exposed to not feel like that bait and switch relationship.
Well, I think it's interesting because a woman in her healthy feminine is not going to have that flip. She's going to know and she's going to be able to trust and she's going to be able to see how things are changing and she's going to bring things up as time goes. So, that's one distinction. There are absolutely, a lot of women who are in, I don't want to say a lot, but there's becoming more thanks to, feminine energy becoming a little bit more mainstream, but there are more women becoming more in touch with themselves where there's no aversion to communicating. There's no aversion to, discussion. There's just like goals, and they're allowing, their intuitions to lead them, which always benefits the marriage as long as the man is also in his healthy masculine. So I think it just really depends because, for my relationship was completely reversed. Like we've only become into a healthy relationship thanks to feminine energy. Otherwise, who knows? There would have been friction for days, for years. So I think that when there is what I would call a natural course of change over the course of, a relationship, it becomes a matter of like, well, there was never really intention or discussion about what you really wanted for the relationship as the big event. And that's what I call them, big events, moving in together and having children, is that there isn't enough change that's going on between. Do you need to take a break or are we good?
No, we're good. Andrea was just coming in because the girls are leaving. So I was saying goodbye.
That's all good.
Have fun, babe.
So, when there's a natural course of change with big events, it's really just, it's tough because really what happens is, especially with children, a woman changes so drastically, so drastically. And if she's not in touch with her body, is not in touch with her hormones, in touch with her intuition, I mean, shit hits the fan real fast. It's like, irritation levels through the roof, because they're not used to asking for support. They're not used to, it's like they don't know how to ask their man for more, right? And then it is a communal thing to be able to be like, for a man to, because once you get into the routine of things, sometimes the doing can be a negative thing because it's like, oh, well, have I gotten out of the habit of doing what she really liked in the beginning, right? And then throw hormones into the mix. Good heavens, it makes it so complicated because a woman, like, I mean, my husband knows, like, there are some months where my hormones are not working for me. And I'm like, don't you even dare touch me. Like, if you touch me, it's like, no. And that is with me even being in my healthy feminine, but that's me knowing that something's not right with my body, asking him for space for me to figure this out. And he's like, yep, totally got it. Like, no problem. Like, I understand. And I'm like, listen, I was like, I don't know. It's just we're working it through. The body's doing what it's doing. I was like, it's not that I, don't want to, but I was like, but my body is just like being weird. And so I need some space, but that's communicated. And so there's no hard feelings, between what's going on. And I still, like, if my husband wants it, I made a rule. I was like, I will never say no to him. Like, there's no way I will not allow myself to receive, even if he wants intercourse, because I have to still practice receiving. Yes, I teach it. And yes, it's become much more easy for me, but there are times where I will have my body's like, nope, we need to go back to that wounded masculine. And I want to just reject. I want to just be like, no, this isn't good enough for me. And so I have to still train myself to be like, oh, my husband wants intercourse. This is a sign for me to receive. I need to receive this. And I need to be open to the feeling of what it's like to be, because we as women are like, nah, not in the mood. And we just shut it down. When in reality, it's like, well, what would it be like to just be more open? Right. And so it's so complicated, that dynamic of the changes that happen. And if a man and a woman who are, just couples and partners together are paired together and they both don't share the what I call the common goal of, number one, personal development in combination with a communal desire to have a good, solid marriage and work on it together, you're just going to have friction. It's just like, and I say those two parts are really critical because you can have a common goal for having a great marriage together, but not have a willingness to do the personal development, and you'll still end up with the same problems because they need to coexist together. Those two goals and those two desires do have to coexist together. And even my husband, like, until he found you, he'd been searching. He's like, there's so much more out there than there is for men. How am I supposed to get into my healthy masculine when there's like no one out there teaching it? And I was like, oh yeah, like that's a big problem, right? And so, because I have been doing the work, I've been doing this work for years, and he's like over here, he's trying to catch up to me. And he's like, but I don't have the same resources that you do because there's just not the same out there for women as there is for men. And I was like, no, that's a really valid point. And I'm like, something that we have to put out there into the universe to change. And, he did eventually find you, even though I know he's not working with you yet, but it's like, okay, that, that's the goal. And that's great that he has that path forward. But with the changes, I mean, it can seem like a full-time job because it's like it requires self-awareness. It requires a knowledge of self. It requires a willingness to be open, to have difficult conversations without the extremism of emotion. And that's where, the healthy and the healthy feminine and healthy masculine, when they work together, I mean, my husband and I, we never did a lot, but there isn't like, even when we're in a disagreement, it's not like extreme polarity. Like we don't really have that. It's like, okay. And even if we don't come to a conclusion or we come to a solution, it's like, okay, well, we tried. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, when the solution is willing to provide itself, and we'll have another conversation. So, but again, we're constantly having conversations about like, okay, where do we want our relationship to go? What are we seeking for our relationship? What are we seeking for each other? And then inside of that, we're constantly working on each other together. Right? It's like, okay, well, this is what I'm working. I have my mentor. I have, things that I'm working on myself and in my business and in my growth. And same thing for him. I think that, if you're going through the changes, the personal development first, and then starting the communication together. And if your partner is not somewhere in a place where they're not ready to do personal development yet, all you can do is show up for yourself and just try, and not put the pressure on. Like, you can manifest it. You can absolutely manifest your partner getting to that level that you're at. Like if you have guys that are listening to this podcast that are working on themselves, but their wife isn't doing anything, then yeah, you can absolutely encourage her and support her, and not, get frustrated, right? I think that's the biggest thing that can be damaging in the relationship, is like, the frustration, and to start communicating more. Oh my gosh, women love nothing more than a man communicating with her. And it's not easy for her. Tendency is not the first thing to open up, have conversations, but women need it so bad. And so, but of course, the woman has to be willing to hear first. Of course, if she's not willing to hear, then it's not going to go well. But that communication of like, okay, well, it's so important. And so I think that's going to be step number one, is to be transparent with yourself and to start open and being communicating more, and to see, because I was transparent with my husband. I was like, I'm like, well, I didn't say it as in you need. I just said like, I would love it, because that's a good thing to emasculate a husband, is to be like, yeah, you need this. Don't say that. But I remember saying like, I would love it if you could join me in this personal development journey. Now it's going to look different because I'm farther along than you, but I'm like, I would just think it would be amazing if you could have these, someone to work with on the things that you want to work with your path, then, in addition to me. And he was like, yeah, he's like, that would be really awesome. And I was like, okay, well, maybe, what, like if you started like looking or searching, or, I can give you some book references and things like that. And, and slowly, because he was emasculated. So he was less inclined to take action, because I had already made him feel so shitty for taking action for so long. But eventually, yeah, I mean, he did. And he very much started taking more and more action because he felt empowered by it. It was baby steps, and it's always a work in progress, but that's what I was, hopefully that's helpful, because I know it's tricky going from that dating, honeymoon phase into like children and hormones and health problems and living together, and all the dualities of having different, patterns, and, like it's such a multifaceted thing. But I think that the personal development stuff is really key, in the self-awareness and the willingness to communicate.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially for like the first half of the Warrior's Way is going through exactly those steps. I think we talked about too, without willingness, we don't have much to work with anyway. So we have to have that. I also want something more. Like we have to have that, like, let's grow together. And there's a couple pieces. I'm just going to grab portions of what I was grabbing. We've done videos on some of these too. So this is where I think we're in alignment, you and I, like where we're agreeing. Even one of the videos we had is what is the goal of a relationship? Our goal for the relationship we had was, it's better to have a life together than if we weren't. Like, what are we doing to make us together is better than if you're daydreaming about not being with you would be so freaking good right now. You're like, well, maybe you're not doing as great a job if thinking about not being with you at all is better. I'm not even talking about being with someone else. I just mean like just not being together is better. Like, we're not doing a killer job if just alone is better than being with you. And so that's at least a base part of, can we make life better for each other here? And so that's at least a good thing on this one. One thing I want to give you credit, you're right. Have grace for growth. If you're working on you and your partner's just not in yet, or even like good point, like I look forward to meeting Paul. Like I'm looking forward to it. Like I'm like I really enjoy this conversation. I'm looking forward to meeting him. He's gonna love the brotherhood. He's gonna love the boys. And so like there's healthy guys. We did have to build it. You're very right. There was thousands of women's groups, and I think I could only find like 6 men's groups.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
made one. I'm like, we're making one. We're gonna make a healthy place, but we're gonna speak warrior talk. We're gonna be on the mind to body side. There's places that are the heart side. There's places that are the spirit side, pastoral stuff, or let's do a spirit walk and spirit hugs and shit. I'm like, no. We're Spartans and Paladins. We're gonna be warrior up. What is the strategy? Give me the tactics. Let's man in. Like, yeah, but we do things in such a like healthy way. Be a good dad, be a good man. And so it's cool to be able to have those conversations, but also have grace for growth. Oftentimes our partners are not on the same journey. And we get to judge in their journey. Like, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing this? And this is where I would take some FBI negotiations. If you're going at your partner with why, expect conflict. Why is a challenging word. And in fact, I had a video that's called like what's the most dangerous letter in the alphabet? I said, it's why. Some of us have lost debates with 3-year-olds simply by them going, well, why?
Yeah.
Because I said so. Just stop it. Like, like you've lost to why. Because at some point, maybe I don't know. And so why can be challenging. Is like, if I'm doing so good, why aren't you doing good? You're like, oh, really? Defense is up immediately. And I would probably say recommendation is use how. Baby, how can I support you? I'm doing my journey and I don't want to stifle your journey. How can I support you on your journey without it being like us cross? How can I support? Ask how questions, because how turns into like, how could you do it? And it turns into like a team mindset instead of a why aren't you, or why, and why gets defensive. So ask some how questions like, how can I serve? How can I support? How can I, help you? Like maybe it is something like, hey, you need to help out with the payment on that or whatever it may be. I got you. How can I support? And those are the things where I'm with you there. I like you said, patient. One of the things I say often is just because you're making noise does not mean you're making sense. And people often say, he doesn't communicate. He doesn't communicate. Yes, he does. Oh, yes, he does. Just not the way you like or the way you want it, but he's doing it still. And the same thing as you said, a woman's look can cut. We're communicating all the time. People are constantly communicating, but are we listening? And people forget that listening is a very part of communicating. In testament to you, you're a great listener. You take your turn and I know when to shut up. It's your turn. I need to hear what you have to say. And you're also like, okay, I want to hear what you have to say. That's what a conversation is. But how often do you see somebody who, in order to control, will get into some form of over talking, over explaining, interrupting, not allowing the other person to talk, not even able to acknowledge at all. They say you're not communicating. Maybe we're not listening. And that's where people get goofed up the most is I think people are always communicating. Guys are communicating. They are.
Oh, for sure.
They are. It's just I don't know if we're listening. And this is where I see on both sides. This is just men listen, women don't. I've seen both sides go, you're not listening. You're both waiting to talk, but no one is listening to understand. And
well, and I think
listen to that, just listen to understand.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. And then there's a whole other what I call a third party of like, throw ADD, ADHD in there and you have a whole other potential shitstorm. And so it's like, it's very tricky. And I think it's hard for people because if you have something, or even like a level of autism or something like that, where that's going to make the communication side thing even more complicated, then seeking out that personal development is even going to be more of a priority. Because a partner might not be able to recognize that, but they're going to be experiencing those frustrations. And so I just want to make that clear because it goes on both sides, right? Like a woman might have ADHD and then the way that she communicates is going to be so drastically different because in her head, she's already had the conversations and she didn't even say it out loud, right? And so she's like, oh, why are we talking about this? Like, we already talked about it. And the guy's like, no, we didn't talk about it. Like, you had that conversation in your head. And so I think I just wanted to throw that out there because I know that it can be such a massive pain point for couples. And by seeking out that personal development to gain awarenesses of like, okay, is this something I need to pay attention to, right? Do we need to add another level of like, how can I change my communication method based on something else that might play in to like the relationship and it affects more than one person? So
Yeah, it's a good point, especially if they have that dynamic. Another one, even without that, even if let's say both do not have any type of, let's be more real. There's a lot more people who just aren't interested in listening versus ADHD. Let's be real. They're like, I don't care what you're saying. Like, that's
yeah,
that's not ADHD. Don't go like, I think I just developed ADHD with you right now. Like,
right,
hold on. Like, you're just kind of being cruel at the moment, I guess would be my judgment. Here's the thing on this one. Here's the piece. There's another part that's really tough, especially for communicating or venting. Venting is a big deal because some people do need to vent, and sometimes guys do, and oftentimes women do really well with like, let me just get it off, I just let it out, no fixing, just let it out. I think that one of the things when we were doing an advanced training with my men is people forget that just because you're in a relationship does not mean the person you're with is qualified to bear your burden. You know, if somebody's going to unload an entire day's worth of negativity on somebody, and they're just supposed to be qualified enough to take all of your stuff on and still be okay with all of their own stuff and your stuff. A lot of times we think because we're in a relationship, well, they're supposed to also be a qualified therapist. They're
right,
supposed to be able to handle an entire whole day's worth of negativity just dumped on top of them, and they're supposed to also be happy and healthy and have a great energy and feel good. And you're like, you just that was the whole hour of just negativity. I don't I don't feel that good at it. You're like, oh, I can't even share with you. I'm communicating and you're terrible. It's like it's another thing because you just unloaded a dump truck of hate on me and I'm supposed to feel okay somehow. I think I have to process this. Like, holy crap! Or even like, can you just stop? I'm overloaded. I just can't take any more negativity right now. And like, you don't even listen. And the judgments and the wounded part will start getting manifested even louder because the person was never qualified for that conversation. So I tell my men, like, this is important, guys. You need your guys. If you think you have to do it alone or your wife is qualified to take a negative unload, like that's not her job, man. Your partner, the whole thing, soft, flexible, encouraging, happy, pleasurable, content, impulsive, interesting, nurturing, appreciating. You can't just bomb her with hate and then she's supposed to be these beautiful things. But you can vent and bitch with your boys and go, oh my God, work thing, this thing broke, and tires, why are fucking tires so expensive? Like, we can do all that stuff with the boys. You don't need to talk about tires with your girl. She doesn't care about your tires. But your boy will be like, I know, man, mine were $1,100 for two. That's some bullshit. Like, and the boys can get it. And then you can not have to vent that stuff to your girl. She doesn't want to hear about your tires, man. Like,
yeah,
she doesn't. And that's okay. But no more than we want to hear how much Susan at office is a bitch. Like, I don't even know her. Okay. Like, let me know, I guess. But I don't know what to do with this information. Do you want me to? I can tell you what I would do if Josh was being a bitch at the office. You know, like, would you want that? No, I don't. Like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do. I'm not qualified for this conversation. Can you vent to somebody else and then bring me some of that nurture, love, appreciation stuff? I'm not saying don't vent. I'm just saying maybe I'm not qualified. And I think sometimes I'm watching relationships where they think that the other they're with is supposed to be everything. Hold on a second. It's impossible for anyone to be everything. It's not a realistic expectation, but to say I don't need friends because I've got you, and I don't need to vent to anybody else because you're supposed to be, you should be the person who can handle everything. You're like, where do you think that I trained for this? My parents are dysfunctional as hell. How the hell am I supposed to handle this? I don't have any of that training. My dad would have threw a coffee cup through the TV screen by now. I'm supposed to be what? I don't understand. Like this is where it's tough for the guys. And for girls, this is tough on both sides because I've seen guys unload and women, my women's like, I don't know what to do with all that. Like it's just, I think it's a relationship thing, and that's just one thing I just want to throw in. The communication. You're like, women want this, and I'm like, people are. Both sides are communicating that we're making sense or doing what that person is even qualified to handle. And so expectations will kill it, kill relationships. I have been just fascinated in this conversation, and you've been going heavy on the lady side. I'm going to switch gears. What questions do you have for like the guys? Let's get into the boys. Let's tear the boys open a little bit because we've been getting into the girl stuff and how the girl stuff works. What would your question for like, let's get the guy stuff in here. Let's do some, what are the boys doing? What's going on that side?
You're kind of putting me on the spot here because, I mean,
What are your ladies asking? They're like, how come he's not? Or what is he doing? Or why does he do that? Like, what are any of the ones where like I can try and be a translator for my boys in a healthy way?
right. I think the most frustrating thing for the women that are in that I work is that the men are usually almost all of them are not in their healthy masculine. And so the women are like, well, how do I get him to see? How do I get him to be open? Right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, and I do my best because from a woman's perspective, there are things like we have to change the way we talk. That's like number one thing, right? How you communicate and how you're asking for things or how you're communicating to your partner can have a really damaging effect. So that's, usually that brings a significant change. Um, but there are a lot of women who are like their husbands are just not aware that they're acting in their wounded masculine and that they're, trying to force their things. And I mean by things like they're like demanding more from their wives, like, oh, you need to clean, or oh, you need to do this and you need to do all these things. And the women are like feeling so devalued in this process because they're like, I just can't. Like I can't do all the things. Can't clean the house, do the take care of the kids, take them to all their sports, and have everything spick and span and food on the table and dinner on the table at the same time. Oh, and you also wanted me to take the car in to get serviced, like while you're at work. Like I can't do it all. And then their husbands end up getting frustrated. And so I don't know necessarily if that's, part of the context of, what you're asking, because, in my instance, I'm going to be like, oh, your husband brings information, right? Because I mean, ultimately, it's like, a man who is like, it's like a lot of the men will just not respond unless their woman gives them an ultimatum. And I don't mean divorce. That's not what I mean by divorce, but like they're like, you know what? It's really no different here when you're here with the kids and when you're not. And then they're like, oh shit. And only then when they say it so bluntly are the men like, oh shoot, maybe I should pay attention to, what my wife, because she'll try and have conversations with them and she'll try and, have communication with them, and they're just not taking it seriously. They don't, like you said, they're not really willing to listen to their wives, and to the degree, like if a woman is opening her mouth, it's important, which sounds really difficult because from a man's perspective, like, well, she won't stop talking. But it's like ultimately, especially for the women that I'm coaching, when they're coming to their husbands with even what they're doing, and they're like, you know what, I'm trying to change, like I'm trying to be more sex, and I'm trying to want it more, and I'm trying to, ask for help, and they're literally asking their husbands to help them, and the husbands are like, huh, like what, why the change, like they like are resistant to the flip, because it's almost like they're like, well, I don't know if I should trust you, right? And so there's so many varying degrees of hurt that, but for the most part, it's like the men are just not willing to listen to the women. And it's like, I've heard this like a lot on social media, but I am seeing it in the women that I've coached, is very few of them have husbands that are willing to support the transition into feminine energy. Because the women are like, oh, well, I'm going to do it for myself. But then they're just like, okay, but my husband's still trying to force me to do more. And it's like, I don't want to do more. Like, I want the housekeeping to be a joint effort. I don't want it to all on my shoulders. And same thing with the cooking, and same thing with taking the kids to sports. And it's like, oh, his golfing or his hunting or whatever is like the number one priority that takes over, even like it's even before the kids. And they're like, oh, I just wish, he would like want to spend time with us or want to spend time with the kids. Instead, he's like so stressed that he has to go to his like hobby or his activity. And so that becomes really, I can't necessarily coach that other than as trying to communicate to each other. Um, but that seems to be the biggest frustration with the women that I work with, is that the men are just like they're not willing, and they're not listening, and they don't want to listen. So they're like, it's almost like they don't want a better marriage. They're so content with the pattern and the habits that have already been established, while the women are over here literally killing themselves. And the men are just like, it's if it's not broke, don't fix it, And so they don't get when all of a sudden women start working with me, and they're seeing this disruption, and then they're like, oh, great. And then I have, clients whose husbands waver back and forth. Like sometimes they're like really annoyed. And then sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, let's talk about it. And then it's almost like there's this bipolar likeness that's going on in the dynamic. And then the women are like, oh, and then, this situation happened, and then he blew up. And then it's like, oh, but then 2 weeks later, he'll be totally willing to have a conversation or even listen to a podcast. And so you just have this like really confusing dynamic that's happening with the women that I work with. But the biggest complaint is like, yeah, he's just not willing to even have a conversation about the importance of what I want for our marriage.
Sounds awesome. That was a stack. So I'm going to go through the stack because there's a lot of pieces here. So I'm going to help. I'm going to represent for the boys on this one. What's really going on, ladies? Why is this guy doing this? What's going on? This isn't a blame game, even though it starts off this way. Like, why isn't he? He's not listening. He's not willing. He's not caring. He's not. It is a blame game already. You talked about first dates. Listen, this lady's already not fun to hang out with. Like, and so you're already seeing the struggle is real just in that part. I'm gonna represent for the guys a little bit more. If you want a man to do better, nagging is not the way. I'm just gonna help you guys out here. Just if you guys are thinking, you need to do, you're not doing that, and why don't you do this, and why aren't you listening to this, and why aren't you doing that? I'm gonna tell you, the guy wants to do less because we don't want another coach. I want a cheerleader. And if I chose you, the reason I chose you is that list we just had. The nurture, the fun, the playfulness, the flexibility, all of these things that made you enjoyable. I loved being around you, and now it's nag, complain, whine, bitch, negative, negative, negative. You're like, oh, like it's really taxing because guys are not built for that burden. We're not built for that. We're not made for it. We just talked about this. We're not made for that. Do you want me to fix something, babe? Do you want me to do my thing? If you want a guy to do more, cheer him on. And I already heard the women say, well, what if he's not doing anything to cheer about? You chose him for a reason. There was something that was good when you started. There was something he was doing right. He was doing a thing to make you go, I want you forever. That guy was doing something. He didn't do nothing and you said, let's do this for life. He was doing a thing, and he chose you because you were doing a thing too. He was trying to impress you. He was working his ass off to try to get you. He was working and doing something, and you were cheering him on. He loved you as the best cheerleader. We all have options, and you're the best cheerleader, and I like that the most. I feel the best around you. And when he starts not feeling good around you and you nag instead of cheer, he'll do less. But if you want him to do more, cheer on what makes him do more. If you want him to do more dishes, tell him how awesome, man, my man is so good. I got a man who does the dishes. Like, and let me feel your muscles while you do it. You're so strong. And remember that little boy? Feel strong. I feel my muscle. Like, we love to aim to please. We want our girl to be impressed with us. We want her to cheer us on. And encouragement and cheering makes us we want to do more. Our guys want to. But if you go, why don't you do anything around here? Why is it defense? How can I cheer my man on again? Well, cheerleaders are not just for the end of the game, ladies. Cheerleaders are when your team is down. How do you get them? Go fight, win, not get off your stupid ass, you lazy piece of shit. That's not the cheerleader that they wanted. If you want the guy to do more, start praising the stuff that he's doing and appreciate the shit out of him. Because the more you praise, the more he'll want to do, because we want that part. It's part of our serving. We want to impress you. Start at least pretending to be impressed, because then we'll do more. And if you keep encouraging the thing you want more of, you'll get more of it. But if you complain, you'll do less and we'll start shutting out the information. The guys need that love, that nurture, the playfulness, the kindness, the be nice. And that's why when the guys were like, where's your job? It's like, just be nice, please. Please. I'll settle for being nice. I want Lois Lane, not kryptonite. If you're nice, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do anything that you want. Be kind. Be the healthy feminine. Be that. We'll do anything that you want. And so when it's come so hard, where you even said with your husband, I beat him down for so long. You both used to be the thing that you choose. Now, if you're mad at him, you trained him. A lot of times women take on a lot. And you've seen them. They take on everything, especially when the kids come around. I'll take it on. I'll take this on. I'll take care of that. I'll make sure that's done. I'll take care of this. I'll do this. And they take on so many guys like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, I'll do it. I mean, what do you want? I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Fine. All right. You got it. And then at some point they hit overload on all the stuff they're doing. And they're like, why don't you do anything? It's like, you told me you got it like 100 times. At some point, I just stopped asking what you needed. You trained me to do less. Now let's go the other direction with the women who start working with you and getting healthy. They're wondering why the guy who's not doing anything because she took care of him for everything, and now she's getting into a healthy state of receiving instead of a unhealthy state of doing. Well, they vetted a guy based on a man who may be in a boy mentality still and still was looking to date his mother, wanted someone who just takes care of everything. And if that was your selling point for the relationship, and then you're becoming healthy and you want a provider and a strong, like a protector, provider, you want a good man. But you dated this guy or you married this guy because he had boy-like attributes and he wanted to be mothered. Well, now you're going to have an issue because you chose a mate based on your unhealthy state. Well, that's going to be complicated for him to even know to grow, because the reason I chose you is because I don't have to grow. This is where I'm not disagreeing, where you're like, sometimes when people get healthy, it kills the marriage. Sometimes it does. And I've seen it with my men too, where they're like, I was in a very toxic mindset myself. And that toxic mindset was the way that I vetted and chose my woman. And I realized now that I can see she's highly abusive to me. Like, this is an unhealthy relationship, but I didn't know better. And so
Yeah.
now I'm trying to work with her to be healthy. Or you're with a woman who's with an unhealthy man and trying to work with him healthy. And they never seen it and don't know what that even is. And this may be one of those things where I've outgrown an unhealthy relationship. It's true. This is both ways. You may just have chosen somebody when you were in an unhealthy state, and now that the veil has been lifted and you can see clearly, if they're not willing, like you said, if they're not willing, you may be in a dead relationship. You may be in one. I'm not saying you are, just maybe. Look at it out. Like, is there a way to fight for it? Do you want something better to make each other's lives better? Or is he waiting for you to be the person who takes care of him? You trained him. I laugh when people like my age get mad at millennials. They get mad at the young generation. Like, they don't care about nothing. They don't work. And it's like, well, you trained them. This is your kid. That's your thing. You made them. That was you. Well, here you are with a relationship that started off with all the show that we all loved each other for, and now his priorities are golf, and now his priorities are fishing, and it seems more important than being around you. Listen, if he's trying to do something fun and it's anything but you, it's because you're not fun. Let's just put it where it's at. You're really not that fun to be around, or else he'd be loving to do stuff. You'd be getting ice cream and golf karting again, but he's going to solitary sports. He's going to go, or he's going to go and fish. He's going to go someplace where even not having any noise is better than being around you. Heads up, you're wearing your dude down. Even if he's a good guy and he's like, I just need to seriously get away from you. You're not that fun. I'm going to put it out there, ladies. Work with Miriam. Get your fun back. Get your pep back in your step. Because your guy is trying to avoid you when you used to be the greatest cheerleader he's ever known. You used to be the highest source of inspiration. You used to be the person he wants to impress more than anyone in this planet. And now he feels like I'm not even needed. I'm useless around this dynamic. I'm not even wanted here, which leads back to the when women talk, the things they say are important. If I need help, I need you to care about me and my needs. It's important. Please hear when I'm sharing that this means I need to care about my feelings and what it is that I need. And well, guys are like, well, you want my empathy and you want me to care. Can I get a little of that too? Can you care about my feelings at all? Can you ask me, like, how do I feel and how am I doing today? And I don't want you to ask my well being, how was work? What did you do today? Well, what are you going to do about it? Not well being. How do you feel? Touch your dude's heart. Feel your man. That's a human. We say, well, he's my rock. He's the strength in the relation. He's the rock. What feelings do rocks have? That's a man. That's a guy. It's a human. And inside there's a little boy, just like you have a little girl in there who likes to play and be fun. Inside's a little boy who also just wants to be cheered on. And look how strong I am. And don't I impress you? And I love you and you love me. Guys, I can relate highly. It's like be, don't do. I can relate with you on that for like, man, what an attractive thing. Because guys have to do. We can't be. Guys aren't chosen to, we're not loved for who we are, the Chris Rock thing. Guys aren't loved for who we are, we're loved for what we provide and what we do. And we learn this the hard way as teenagers. We can't go to a date and say, love me for who I am. Can't do that. Where do you work? What's your 5-year plan? What's your safety security? Do you seem strong or confident? Are you able to, provide a safe life or a good environment? Would you be a good father? We got a list here. We got a whole safety security criteria that it's like we have to bring our resume. And it better be good too. And look good while doing it. Like, damn, this guy's got an uphill battle for burden of performance. He used to pass the test. He used to make it. But we don't get empathy anymore. It's not about our feelings, but we need to have your feelings. Give a little bit of that back and you'll watch a guy who truly he'll listen, he'll care again because you'll show that you care. But women, look at the amount of suppression that guys will have to do. Guys can't show this vulnerability without feeling inadequate. Yet you're saying I need him to be more open, but you're not showing any empathy for his feelings, but you want him to show more of them. But if you're in a wounded state, you're gonna be judging him, not accepting him. And so when a guy is taking nagging and judging and ridicule and being put down constantly, where is he supposed to be this vulnerable, open, caring, empathetic human again? Because he's not receiving any of this. He's not getting that list that we wanted, that nurture, that appreciation, that playfulness, the flirting and the love we're not getting any of those. We're not getting any of those anymore. Yet you're supposed to be empathetic for my feelings, but I will not show you empathy. At what point is it not going to become resentment? Care about my feelings, but I don't care about yours. And you're a piece of shit if you don't care about my feelings. It's like, wow, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? How do I be a good man around this? Huh. Now I'm going to give another piece. What is the guy's biggest curse? What happens with men? The hardest thing to deal with the men for the ladies is anger. No question. We are volcanoes. And when a man blows up, it's scary. Scary. It's not fun when a guy blows up. It's scary. Not good. I want you guys to pay attention to this very important sentence. Men have to suppress before we explode. We push everything down. We push it all down. Nobody cares about our feelings. Most common sentence all men say, nobody really cares about my feelings. Nobody cares. So I just push it down, push it down, push it down. Suppression leads to expression. At some point it blows up. And there's only really two options, because out of the coping mechanisms, you've got the retreat aspect, which is suppression, push it down. I'm not going to deal with it. It's fine. It's fine. At some point, we'd like to bargain. That's the over and over communicate. This is the talk over, interrupt, trying to negotiate. How do I compromise? What do I do? How do we make it work? And if that doesn't, it's only volcano. And there's two kinds of volcanoes. It's either going to be complete and full surrender and just cry, just break down and just fall apart, just lose it, or we blow up in anger. So it's only going to be sadness or anger. These are the only ones you get. Well, one thing I've learned as a man, and almost every guy I have has the same experience, that ugly face, fall apart, cry thing, that only leads to judgment and rejection. Because not women are healthy enough to see their man, their rock, their protector, their strong guy, their hypergamy reason why he was chosen just crumble in front of them. And I've watched guys who fell for it. And I did it. I let her have it. I unloaded my heart. I opened it up completely. I took the armor off and I let her in. And now we don't sleep in the same bedroom anymore. Now she doesn't find me attractive anymore. It killed something in the relationship. I've watched guys who did all of the things that they were told to do. Open up, be vulnerable, share your feelings, do all the stuff, no longer sexually attractive to their women. What the heck are they supposed to do with that? So that guys have learned. We learned crying. Doesn't make any sense. If I start crying about stuff, oh my God, I get rejected. I get shut down. I get closed off. Yet I'm supposed to be that. That's lose my marriage. So the only other option they got is anger. The only thing we can do is at least do anger. Why? Anger can at least give a false sense of confidence. It's not authentic. It's not real, but at least it looks like if I'm yelling, I may know what I want. If I'm being loud and making myself more seen and I come off as the bad boy who don't care, that at least gives a presentation of possible protection. I don't take shit from nobody. He's so strong. He's so strong. It's really a mask. It's a cover for us doing not okay at all. But at least it has that perception of like he looks like he knows what he wants, being really loud about it versus fetal position crying in the corner. But that's not going to work. You don't get perceived as confident for that one. And so at least it comes off as I can at least get respect from men, at least have some sort of desire from women because it appears confident, it appears strong, it appears like you don't take shit from nobody. But it's important to understand this sentence. Because we know we cannot cry, anger is how we cry. Anger is how men cry. The more angry your guy is, more likely the more sad he is. He's not going to cry in front of you because that is not received. So it's anger. And that energy is going to come out, but it's because I feel so fucking sad inside of here that I cannot show you anything except for this one emotion. And it is right across the board. Almost every guy is like, I know crying isn't going to work, but at least if I'm pissed off, I can at least have a little dignity around this damn place. Anger is how we cry. If you're watching your guy getting angry, he's crying. He's not okay. He's not happy. He's not okay. But instead of judging and tearing him down and calling him a psycho, you're hurting your guy. You're hurting him. He's not okay. He chose you because you made him feel good, and now he doesn't feel good anymore. Instead of going, damn, baby, what's going on? Are you okay? I want to hear what's happening in here. You're going, why don't you do more, you lazy asshole? Why aren't you doing dishes? Why aren't you doing personal growth? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why? And the guys are just like, whatever. Give up. I surrender. I'm not impressing you anymore. You don't want me. You don't care about my feelings. I'm going golfing. I'll go fish. I'm just gonna go sit where it's just, I don't even care if I catch one. Just sit where it's quiet. That's what's happening on the guy side. You're not looking at a rage monster or a guy who doesn't give a shit. You're looking at a guy who's been beaten down because he cares so damn much and no one cares about him. Or at least that's how he feels. You're not looking at a guy who's not willing. You're looking at a guy who did everything he could and it wasn't enough. So why try? And now that you've overloaded yourself after you said you're going to do it without me, you piece of shit, you told me I'm useless. And I ruin everything. I'll just give you money because I'll work all day long with no appreciation and be told I'm not enough when I get home, even though I just got my ass kicked at work. Can't even share that with you because you're already overloaded. And it just makes it so that whenever I share how bad I hurt in my heart, you talk about you, and then I have to console. Why would I share? I'll suppress that too. This is the most common narrative I see from my men. In order for them to go into a healthy state, we have to at least acknowledge, like, dang, bro, man, you've taken some heavy hits, man. I got no healthy outlet. I've got no way, nobody I can talk with, no way to grow. I got no direction. I've got no skills. What can I do? My parents, they're divorced and they're not happy either. Who do I go to in a healthy way to go, where's the right way? Because I see a lot of wrong ways. I see a lot of bad advice. So I understand with the ladies, but the vulnerability for guys to be able to do that, as much as we need to be a safe place for our ladies need to be an encouragement and a place of like, I really enjoy your breakdown for what is a healthy energy, because it makes guys want to do better. Men want to be better for a healthy feminine woman. And I'm not saying like they need to be they're masculine or whatever. No, guys, our list that we made was all about serving you. But are you able to receive the service we provide without tearing us down for what we would be happy to give? So that's what's happening on the other side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Pretty crazy, right? It's like, listen, I hear both sides. I got men and women on this one. What she's saying is
Absolutely.
valid. She's got pieces that are important, and they are important. But if you're completely neglecting his pieces with expectation that he needs to do what you won't do, expect conflict.
For sure.
It's a lot of pain out there. Real talk, especially a topic for being like, around love especially, is so much pain. It's the highest source of pain in most people's life is in the love category. Not just in
Hmm.
relationships, could be parents or best friend betrayal or something I really cared about, somebody who hurt me so bad.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, so I actually really, really enjoy some of the perspectives that you have here to help women to, like, I don't think you remember what made you choose that guy choose you. I don't think you remember that you were fun and flexible and nurturing and appreciative and kind and open. You were those things, and that made him want to be with you. You flirted with him. You walk by, you slap him in the butt. You loved that man. You were into him. And then somehow all of it stopped. And then he started to stop. And then everyone stopped. And now what happened? It's a lot of pain out there. It's a lot. So
Yes.
guys have to have a place, though. Men, I'm just going to put out there for our guys who have the unhealthy mindset. If you think you're supposed to do it alone or your woman's supposed to carry your burdens, you're wrong. Wrong on both. Men are stronger together. We have to have healthy mentors and healthy guides and work with each other who are also in a healthy, I want to do better mindset. A lot of hats as humans. For women, you got to be mom, you got to be wife, you've got to be woman in your own thing, you've got to be professional in your business, you've got all of your things you have to be. These are different hats. What men do too. What's a good man? What's a good brother? What's a good father? What's a good husband? What's a good son? Like we have all these different hats, and how are we supposed to navigate that if we don't see anybody doing any of them right? Together, we're stronger always. And so vent on your boys and then your sordid stuff to your girl. Our guys do so much better when they're like, "Oh, I'm so angry," and you see healthy guys going, "Well, did you consider where she's coming from, man? I mean, she did say this. Did you see? She probably needs you to do this thing." Like, oh well, yeah, well, damn. I guess, yeah. I guess if you say it that way, I guess I kind of just went right past that. It's like, well, maybe listen to her for a second. Maybe you'll see that she wasn't just crappy. Let's try and make an agreement here and see if you guys can both like make it better for each other instead of just go off on her. But if you're watching your man screaming, it's because he's crying. He's sad, but he can't show that. We cannot show that. We'll show you anger though, and anger is how we cry. It's scary though. We know this. We're terrifying creatures. Like this is why you see the difference from like kids, moms and dads. Moms do that thing when the thing when they're punishing and they talk through their teeth like this. Get off the chair right now. They talk with their teeth closed. When a dad screams or a dad yells, ooh, shivers down your spine. Scarier. We're louder. We're meaner. We're hairier. Yeah, it's scary. So it's also when we start screaming, it gets judged. You're psycho. You're crazy. You don't have your shit. No, he's so damn hurt that he can't even keep it out, and he can't even talk to you in a normal way. Your boy is hurting. I really love this thing that you said with the judgments thing. Like your wound, like judgments is a really big identifier of being wounded. Watch the attacks. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That was a
Yeah.
lot. I think I just put a lot on you.
That was good. It was informative.
Yeah. Hopefully it helps. Like I just see guys really struggle with trying to be healthy and to be able to listen and communicate. It's hard though, because these are the people you care about the most. And I will say, please have some grace for each other, because if you're going off on how much the other person makes you feel bad, that person can only take so much. That's on both sides. You know, if you're going, you fucking always do this and you're a piece of shit and why do I even bother with you? Like, that person can only take so much of that before it's like done. I can't take any more of this. And I say it on both sides. This isn't just a male side. This is like both sides do this. It's the human thing. If you're just tearing your person, the problem isn't them.
Agreed.
So pretty cool stuff. We've been on for hours.
Yeah. It's been about 3 hours, I think.
Yeah, it has. I mean, do you feel fulfilled and we can just do more episodes later, or you got more in the tank?
I think I'm expiring now, only because for me, with the feminine energy, especially in my creative sense, is give, but I do have to reel back and I have to
Yeah,
like refill. So I'm not
right.
quite like, in the masculine form, it's like the give, 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 give. I can't exactly do that. I have to have a lot of balance in my giving and I can't just kind of go nonstop. So I definitely think that, there's absolutely more there to discuss. And I feel like, there was quite a bit that we touched on last time that I don't think, we when we
We didn't
first
even.
initially just
Oh my
talked.
gosh, we didn't even
Um,
record. I wish we would
I
have.
know
We had such good.
that we probably could, dive into even further. But I feel like what we talked about today is I think it's going to be a lot. I think for, if there are women listening and for the women that are listening, for them to just, wrap their minds around, I think it's going to
Hmm.
be a lot. And for the men, to be like, because a man, like even for women, like I have to have healthy masculine energy. It's a balance of both. It's yin and it's yang. And for
Hmm.
women it's the same. It's like, what does that look like? And so, even for the men that are listening, discovering like, okay, where do I need to nurture and how can I nurture? Where do I need to be more flexible, or where can I, be less judgmental, and things like that. And I think it's going to be a lot for people to digest with, which I think is really good. And I know my husband before he's like, I cannot wait to listen to this episode. He's like, it's gonna be so good. So yeah, I think I think it's a lot for people to kind of get started with. And I think
This
it's
is
gonna
this is a
be,
heavy episode, that's for sure.
yeah.
There's a lot of information in here. So if you got triggered during anything Miriam said or I said, good.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that just found the thing you need to work on. And so,
Right.
how can people who are like, I love what this woman's doing. How do I work with her? What do I got to do? Where do I go? Where do
Yeah.
you want them to go so they can work with you aside from click the link in the bio thing?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can find me on Instagram, Miriam Bulcher, and on Facebook, Miriam Bulcher as well. It's all there. Even if you're a LinkedIn person, Miriam Bulcher, like you can just honestly just send me a message. That's the easiest. I respond to all of my DMs personally. I love to connect and talk with people. And if you're like, yeah, I want to learn more and maybe I want to start my journey with feminine energy and tap into all of that, then the link that I'm going to be giving Rick here, like you can do a consultation with me if you want to. And yeah, I do have a podcast, Awakening the Feminine Within. If you want more of, the different areas of feminine energy, you want to go and listen. And I do one-on-one coaching. I do small, very, very small women's group coaching, because my style of coaching is a little bit different than Rick's, and it's very intuitive. So it's very much like you basically still get one-on-one coaching in the group settings, and yeah, it's very rewarding. It's very gratifying, and so yeah, that's how you can connect with me: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, podcast.
I love it. Yes, and please do. I'm highly impressed with the way you're doing this. I've talked to multiple people who work in the polarization realm, and this is one of the most healthy versions I've seen. So I give you honor and
Awesome.
praise for your development and your work so far, because it's it seems like it's on such a it's a more healthy path than I've seen other people project. Like
Hmm.
this seems like this way's been working, and it's working. Please look at the results. And so, for any of you warriors out there, you know what I always say: challenge everything. So call her up, have a conversation, feel the real deal. She'll know, and she'll feel you, or you'll feel her. Have a conversation to go, is this really going to be the right thing for me? So, have the courage to book the time, have the conversation, and challenge us both. Is this the real deal? Because I think you're going to be just as pleasantly surprised was. It seems like Miriam is the real deal.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that, and I very much appreciate, having me on this podcast and instigating this conversation because it's you know, I think for you and I, it's like, yeah, let's get into it, right? But for a lot of people, it's difficult to even think about having these conversations. And so I really appreciate, your openness and your willingness to discuss about it because it is. And I mean, I think we talked about it on our first initial call was like, you know, even deepening like the emasculation side, like that's a whole conversation, right? In and of itself. And one that I will be having on my podcast, but I'm waiting to warm people up to it because it's just such a polarizing topic, even for women. Like to even see that as a podcast title is going to be like, oh, I'm already triggered. To own up to our actions is going to be very difficult. And so
Mhm.
there's a lot more to be said in this area. And I appreciate you being willing to have this conversation because people need to hear it. It's difficult.
It's hard on all sides. It's an honor to be able to serve, and if there's any way I can support you, even on that podcast or anything, you let me know. I'm
Absolutely.
a high fan of your work. I want to see more of it, and I know I've got pages of questions we didn't even get to, so that
Right.
means we need to have more episodes together
Yep.
because we have so much more that we have to share to help people out.
Totally agree.
So very cool. We'll keep in touch. Thank you so much for hanging out, and let's go recharge
Yes.
because this was a lot. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
So well done today, and highest honors. And I'll see you later. We'll talk later.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.